of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, I just want to welcome the public back. It's nice to have people here in person. It's been a long time. We started this last month and we maybe had half, maybe not even half the size. So it's nice to see people. There are handouts over there on the side table. If you, there's the agenda and then there's some information about the cannabis law. So people have a little bit of a briefing. And there's also a sheet if you want to speak, please sign it. So we know that you don't have to do it now, but if at some point you decide you want to be heard in public comment, you can go over there and sign that sheet. For those of you who are zooming in, because we have, despite being able to go back to live in-person meetings, it's always been the intent to do this, which is live stream it so people can still, from the convenience of their homes, watch. And we also record it so people can watch it at their convenience some other time. So for those people that are seeing us all as a group, and it might be hard to identify who is who. To my right is Nikki Reed, our town clerk. I'm Renee Rotundo, the town supervisor. This is Ann Christmas, a town councilor. Judy McElhannon, town councilor. Sheila Larkin, town councilor. And last but definitely not least, Carl Dennis, town councilor. Tim Fratelski, who is our attorney for the town. Tom Chartrand, who is our accountant, budget officer, bookkeeper extraordinaire. And Bob Rodriguez is on the screen, zooming in from his camper where he is, you are a trooper, Bob, for doing this. We are missing Tom Purcell tonight. And Veronica Hoteling, I'm sorry, Veronica, who is our webmaster, and she runs the internet for us. All the admin things I wanted to say, I think so. So the next order of business, which is not on the agenda, but just came recently to my attention, is that sorry. Oh, that's okay. So we lost a town resident this past week, Avis Exelby. For anybody who knew her, she lived on Ridge Road. She's a longtime resident of the town, a very sweet old lady who will be missed by those who knew her. So if we could have a moment of silence for her, and also just to recognize our 4th of July, which just passed, and how important our independence in this democratic country is. So if we could have a moment of silence. Thank you. So because Tom Chartrand has to be 2 places at once almost, he asked if he could go first tonight. So he is next on the agenda. And Tom?
I'll open up with the statement of the supervisor. As you can see, it was fairly busy in the general fund. Good month for town clerk, a little over $1,000. Court fines, both justices were over $1,000. We had $500 in sale of scrap metal, and we did receive the CNY Community Foundation's grant for helping with schoolhouse. Thanks to Renee's persistence on that. So that's all in, and we appropriated that last month. And then the other amazing thing was our Department of Labor did refund us our unemployment insurance payments they made us make last year. So that is a surplus, and it was, we had scrounged to find that money last year.
And that was almost $15,000.
Almost, yeah.
So
that's a nice surplus to have back in the kitty. The Charter Communications franchise fees, they are running, let's see, I had a note on that. About 1,500 to the positive year to date. So we get 4 payments. Our first 2 payments, if we'd only been getting those, we'd be 1,500 to the good on that. Highway fund, there was one driveway permit issued. And Onondaga County snow and ice removal, we got our final payment on that, and we are 10 cents short of budget, so I think we can absorb that one. On the, nothing much going on, and the rest of the way down, it was a pretty quiet month for expenditures as well. So not a whole lot to tell you about down at the bottom of the page, pretty much the normal stuff we'd expect. As far as, so that was a restatement. As far as our spending year to date, right now, our general fund spending without the trash district, which is that big line item, we're at about 45% of our budget spent. So a little bit lower than we'd expect to be halfway into the year, but a good spot to be at. Our revenue is at 87%, and we're getting that large mortgage tax payment that Dave Knapp told us about last month. So that'll probably bring us very close to our 100% of our revenues. Our highway spending is right now is at about 33%, but Tom's starting to do some paving and stuff I saw in the bill, so that's going to start to creep up. But the revenues in the highway department are at 93%. So we're looking quite good there. One other thing to note that's not really part of the report is we've been talking about the OSEBA, our health insurance self-insured plan. We've been running a deficit on that plan. We were a small positive earlier in the year. Now we're still pretty small, but we're at 30,000 to the positive on that self-insured plan. So we're going in the right direction now. So
I would just add to that OSEBA came out and met with our participants in the plan to try and help them understand ways that they could help come alongside the town who's paying for the insurance and work towards ways that they could use the plan that would be cost saving. So hopefully a few things might have sunk in as far as use of the plan, and we might continue to stay in the positive. It's awesome that we're in the positive.
we were very nervous about
A
that.
long time, yeah, trying to get out of that hole.
So I think that's all I had on the supervisor's reports. The bank reconciliations, I think, went around. So if everybody's happy with those, the supervisor and the clerk, we should probably make
I'll make a motion that we approve the bank reconciliations for the supervisor and town clerk.
And made the motion, and I think Sheila beat out Carl to second it. So any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, we had some discussion on the bills. I think they've all been signed by everybody. If you're happy with.
I would move payment of the bills.
Second.
Renee made the motion and Ann seconded. Carl, you're getting beat out so far.
It's a tie.
Any discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, and it didn't make it. I wasn't sure when Renee was working on this last week whether I'd need a transfer sheet or not. So I do need one. So the first one on the sheet was we've been building up a surplus in the special drainage district for the preserve in order to promote the cleaning of the basins and stuff like that. So I'd like to move that surplus into active funds so that we can proceed with more of the work there.
I would make that motion.
Second.
Carl?
Yeah.
Seconded it. All those, any discussion?
No.
And the other one was just the one we
Or
talked
we'll
about.
do it together.
Yeah, we can do them all both together.
So the second one was moving 3,000 from contingent to publicity.
Correct.
Second it.
You're doing them both right
We're
now.
doing them both together, so.
It's within past the other
So-
things.
Subject to the
resolution.
Yeah,
Subject.
subject to the rest.
Subject, yes, subject to the resolution that's coming under Ann's section of the agenda. Any discussion other than that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, the next thing I wanted to put in your mind for talking at the August meeting is the end of August, of course, we'll start into the budget season. I'll be sending out your department head requests, those type of things. So usually we try to schedule the first workshop late in September. Monday, September 27th is the last Monday of the month. We usually have the supervisors roundtable too virtual there, but might have to do that in person if we were to pick that date. And then October 4th is our regular town board meeting. We can probably deal with any issues there at that time if we haven't resolved them on the 27th. But I also wanted to offer October 7th, which is the Thursday later in that week, as possibly an alternate date if it looks like we're having a long town board meeting. So
Are you comfortable that we're good with this time frame this year? Just, I mean, last year we were so stretched to figure out the budget that, and it was
well, we made a lot of.
some of
changes
us'
to
first
the
year, yeah.
performance.
And we dug deep into the budget last year. I don't know if we need to be as, I mean, we're sort of more familiar with a lot of it this year than we were last year, so.
Well, I was just
We're
thinking
good.
we could schedule two strong meetings for it, the
Okay.
September 27th and October 7th. And if there's any small issues we want to bring up on the October 4th town board meeting, we can.
Okay,
And at that point, we could cancel that meeting later in the week if,
I'd make a
If we're
motion
done.
when we hold a budget meeting on September 27th and also
we need a time though also, Carl.
6 o'clock.
Is everybody comfortable with that?
yep.
Okay.
Well, and the second date was the 7th?
October 7th, yes.
Okay.
You want to hold that one at 6 PM as well?
Mhm.
Good with me.
Do I hear a second? Second. Judy seconded it. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, I think that cleared my list.
And you are dismissed.
Thank you and see you soon.
Bye, Tom.
Good night, thanks.
Thank you, Tom.
So while Tom's packing up, I'll just explain for those of you who are familiar with this room, that table is usually over here. And I don't like this, but we put it over here for the foreseeable future in order to get everybody in on the virtual screen. So if it had been over here, you would, the people that are watching from home would see their backs. And we decided after last month's meeting that that was, we didn't want to do that. We wanted to have their faces when they talk, be on camera, even if they don't. So we moved it over here. It's a work in progress, but the video, audio video system and sort of controls. So next on the agenda is an informational session we decided at the last board meeting to hold regarding the new cannabis legislation that New York State has passed. I'm going to turn the floor over to our town attorney so he can share with you the ins and outs of the legislation. I just want this group to understand, especially those of you who might be here because of that issue, that we only have any authority over two types of licenses that the state can issue. One is dispensaries, state regulated dispensaries, and the other is areas or places where would be allowed on-site consumption. Those are the only two areas. Everything else, and there's a fact sheet over on the table. For some of you who walked in, you maybe didn't see it, and there's a sign in. But the way this is going to work is we would like Tim to discuss the law. And then I want the board, if they have questions of Tim, to be able to ask questions. And then after that, with the board's permission, I would like, if the public wants to be heard, to let the public be heard. I think some of us have received feedback already, both by email and just by verbally from town residents about their feelings about this. So we'd like to have, if you're here for that, we'll give you the opportunity to be heard, but also like to have the board have the opportunity to ask questions. So I'm going to turn this over to Tim to explain everything, and we'll take it from there.
As you all know, the state legislature passed, the governor signed a recreational cannabis bill earlier this year, which allows the use of cannabis for recreational purposes. And it essentially suspends or repeals the criminal penalties related to use of marijuana or cannabis in the state of New York. I think you can have up to 6 plants, 6 at your house. You can have, I think 6 mature ones and 6
I
immature
think it's
ones.
3 and 3.
Yeah, three
Yes.
mature ones and 3 immature ones.
My question is, what happens when the immature ones become mature?
Then you have more cannabis.
It says in this article that it's 6 mature and 6 immature.
I think that,
For
that's my
private
record.
residents.
That's my record per resident.
That is correct.
Sorry.
The same laws that deal with smoking cigarettes are going to also deal with cannabis. So if you could smoke a cigarette outside at a specific place, you can't prevent somebody from smoking cannabis at the same place. Those are all laws that we have no control over. Whatever we do in the town of Pompey does not control recreational use of cannabis for private individuals, and that is something that is state policy now, and there's nothing we can do about that. What the state has given local option to is the authorization to have dispensaries in the town, dispensaries being facilities that have been licensed by the state of New York to sell cannabis to the residents in the state of New York. So we can opt out of the law that allows those. And as the supervisor said, the other type of facility would be on-site consumption facility, what they call lounges, where people can go and smoke cannabis at these facilities. I know the dispensaries are licensed by the state. I think the lounges are also have some authority, will have some control or regulation by the state of New York if they're allowed. If the town of Pompey does nothing, these will be allowed in the town, and both dispensaries and on-site consumption. And there is nothing that we can do about those in the future. The main purpose, as I see it, is to raise revenue for the state and to raise revenue for the local governments. Under the law, there is a 13% tax on cannabis. There's a 9%, I think it's an excise tax that goes to the state of New York. And then there's a 4% sales tax that would be distributed 25% to the county, and then 75% to the municipalities within the town. Or so if there were villages in the town of Pompey, it would be distributed between the town and the villages and the town. And now there are 3 villages, so it would be distributed to all 3. That's assuming that the villages allow the sale and distribution of cannabis or the lounges. You could opt to allow this distribution facilities in the town and opt not to allow lounges, or vice versa. Allow lounges in the town, but not to allow the distribution facilities. If you're going to opt out, you have to opt out by the end of this year by local law. So that would require us to draft a local law, and then you to hold a public hearing on that local law. And if the board chooses to approve that local law to opt out, that is subject to what's called permissive referendum, where somebody who doesn't like the fact that you opted out of those and are not allowing either one of those distribution or on-site facilities in the town, they would have 30 days to get petitions signed. 10% of the people who voted in the last gubernatorial election, if they get enough of those petitions signed, that equals 10% of the people who voted in the last gubernatorial election in the town of Pompey, then that would qualify to get on the ballot to overturn the town's decision to opt out. There's a whole set of laws that deal with the licensing of these facilities that I am not an expert in, but there are all kinds of publications that have come out that explain those things. If you do opt out, you have an opportunity in the future, if you decide, let's see how things go in other towns, and let's see how that's working there. And if it seems to be working fine and they're getting a lot of sales tax revenue, you can then opt back in. and allow-
Anytime.
Yes, in the future. If you don't opt out at the end of the year, that's it. You don't have a choice. You will not be able to opt out into the future. So that's the local option that's set forth in the law, the cannabis law that was passed by the state. Do you have any questions for me? That's really the essence of the law. Does anybody have any questions for me about that?
Can I ask a question very quickly?
Sure.
The amount of tax that would actually be coming to the town, by what you were just reading sounds, 1% of 1%. It sounds very, very small. Do you have
Well, it would be
any-
4% of the, it would be 4% of the sales tax that was generated from the town of Pompey.
The true 4%?
Yes,
Would come right to the town?
yes, because we have no villages and.
Yeah, but 1% goes to the county, right?
No, 70, no, they're
75%.
75%.
1% retained by the county and 3% goes to the town, city, or village.
Right.
Yeah.
25% to the county, 75% to the municipality.
And just to chime in, I don't think, even if we allowed the dispensaries, let's say, hypothetically, and they started generating revenue, we have a clue what that would look like as far as sales tax. Like, would it be worth it? Would the revenue generated be worth it? So we have nothing to base it on.
No, but perhaps you could reverse engineer it, if you knew the percent that would be coming here. And then pick a number, how much in sales would have to happen, for you to get a reasonable return. Like, if you say, wow, is it $1,000 a year? How much in sales would have to be made to generate $1,000 for the town? You know what I'm saying?
Do you know anything about any laws? Would it be possible to have a medical marijuana? I don't know, like. a
medical marijuana has
dispensary
always
just for
been-
medical
no.
marijuana.
No, you can't say we
have an
will only let
application in
medical
the town.
marijuana
Okay.
be distributed in the town. No,
So it has to be,
all or
it's
nothing.
cut and dry.
Yep, all or nothing.
Okay.
And the other issue that was raised, I think by Sheila at the last board meeting is, does the town have the opportunity to present this to the voters of the town to allow them to vote on whether they think medical marijuana or whether recreational marijuana is a good idea? The answer to that is no. Towns do not have that option. The villages actually do have that option, but the towns in the state of York don't have that option.
So we could never do an application or like have it go in front of the planning board for medical marijuana. It's one or the other. Right? Could we do that? Could somebody do that? Let's
Ask the question
say,
again.
let's say somebody wanted to open up a medical marijuana only in our hamlets. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's say somebody wanted to, I don't know, would it be possible for?
I think the
us to
licensing of medical
oversee that?
marijuana, I think the licensing of medical marijuana facilities is different than the licensing for recreational marijuana facilities,
Okay.
because it's already allowed in the state. That was allowed before this law went into place.
Okay,
So
They have to be a registered organization according to, and that's a different, like in order to sell medical marijuana. And I think that's a higher level of review
I would
by the
think
state,
so.
this board they're creating that's going to review and issue the licenses. There's a state board that issues licenses.
Right.
If the town, and I don't mean to interject, but if the town did allow, or didn't opt out, let's put it that way, and a license, somebody went to the state to get a license to have operate a dispensary in Pompey, we would be notified and we would be allowed to have input.
And I think,
that's where I'm going with
But,
that.
yeah.
Like how.
but I think that the town that if we allow these, we could, the planning board, the time, place and manner zoning is still operative. We
Site
could
plan.
regulate where the facilities would be in the town.
Okay,
So we can say even recreational marijuana would only be allowed in these zoning districts,
mhm,
these business zoning districts. So that's certainly something that this board has to think about if it comes to the conclusion that we are not going to opt out. So if you decide you're not opting out, in other words, you'll allow these types of facilities in your town, you still have to change your zoning ordinance to make sure you regulate where they can go.
okay.
But that would be true of any business that would,
Yeah.
including a medical marijuana business. If the state licenses a medical marijuana business in the town of Pompey,
Mhm.
they still, I think, would have to go through the zoning process.
So if we didn't opt out, they would be allowed. And we would have no say in whether they could be allowed, but we would have a say in time, place,
Yes,
manner.
you
Yeah.
can, time, place and
Yeah.
manner would be,
So we would be able to regulate them in that sense, but we wouldn't be able.
from a
to
zoning
prohibit-
perspective.
Yeah, prohibit them. But, so I just want to, does anybody else have a question of the board? I just want to explain, insert, if you would just identify yourself, that's the one thing we ask when people are here to ask a question or participate in public comment, is you identify just your name and the street you live on. We don't need your address, we don't need your social security number, your phone number, anything, just your name and where you live, so we know we're talking to somebody from Pompey. So if you wouldn't mind going, we can go back.
I signed the sheet, but you want me to verbalize it?
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
if you,
yes.
I didn't, so you signed that, that's for public,
I signed the sheet to speak as well,
okay.
but my name is Joe Lorman. 5'9".
Really?
And I live on Squirrel Corn Lane in Poppy Pines.
Okay, thank you, that's all. So if the board is good, I mean, we've had information about this and we've been reading about it, so I'm not surprised that there's not more questions, but if the public wants to speak, just raise your hand, we'll recognize you, and just again, name and where you live.
Portal Pompey Center Road. I own Cafe 119 in Manlius, and there currently is no smoking. Okay, and if you want to smoke outside of a building, you've got to be so far from that building. Okay, now, I've got a question what you said about the taxes. Right now, it used to be all the money collected, the taxes stayed in the village, the towns, wherever, and the towns were reimbursed for that. That got changed some years ago. So we get a percentage of that tax. Okay, Manlius gets the village a percentage of the tax. We don't get per se all of our tax money. And here's what I'm a little concerned about. I've got a liquor license. So let's just say Manlius says you can have marijuana. So now you get another license and now you've got two tax liabilities. So you're going to have your marijuana you're selling. You're going to have your liquor you're selling. You can't have the marijuana in your building because you can't smoke anymore in restaurants. So where is that marijuana going to go? So are they just going to be buying it from you and then going home with it? Or are they going to, so there is places in Pompey, are they going to all gather outside and have a hub and be smoking? I just don't know how that's supposed to work.
Well, if I understand your question, how is it different than cigarettes and people gathering after they purchase cigarettes because they can't smoke in restaurants? I think that's the best example of what may happen. Those are the type of consequences that might happen if that is allowed. If you have lounges, of course, you can smoke in the lounge if they're allowed. They would be allowed. That's the whole purpose of those types of facilities.
So now you could smoke cigarettes as well in the lounge?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't.
Can I interject here just for a minute?
Yes.
There, right now, the state currently doesn't have a law on all this. So
Oh, I'm
Yes, they do.
aware of it. Thank
I
you.
know what. Are you talking about the details or are you talking about the
The
legislation?
dispensary details.
Well, the regulations have not
They
been
currently
drafted
don't have
yet.
any regulations.
Yeah,
Thank
so-
you, Tim.
Yes,
There-
the
it's
state
very
law requires this new agency that's been created by the state to come up with the commissioner is supposed to come up with regulations to implement the law. They have not been drafted yet. In fact, I think there was a dispute within the legislature, and they weren't able to come up with
Mhm.
they weren't able to come up with either funding or something for the agency to get it to the point where they can draft the regulation. So those regulations have not been drafted yet.
Okay, but you kind of should know the regulations to know if you're going to opt out. I mean, they're saying, we really don't know, you should opt out, but there's no regulations. I find that difficult right there. How can you opt out of something that you really don't yet know the regulations or not opt out if you do not know the regulations?
Well, we have no choice. The state law says
I
if you don't opt out by the end of this year, then you never will be able to do it again.
Right,
So I think we can only proceed based on what the law allows us to do.
It is very difficult. They put out this law, they give us an influx of information, but there's no regulation on it. So how, and I am in a complete agreement right now. So are they going to figure it out before December 31st? Like, what do you do?
correct.
It's very difficult. I understand, you know.
How does everything
and-
else work in this state?
I agree with that right now. I just am very, you're throwing a bunch of information. And so the reason why Renee brought everybody together, which is not half of Pompey right now, not even a minuscule of Pompey right now.
We don't know who's watching though.
I know,
So
I
it's a good
know, but still, how many people are watching? And thank you for watching. But I need to hear more voices. I just do. I feel like maybe if
Well-
we wait a couple weeks, maybe they'll come up with something more concrete for us. I don't know. I just feel like they threw out this, sure, okay, it's legal, but there's no regulations. I don't know. That's the way I feel.
When you say regulations,
Yeah.
For the dispensaries, they haven't come up with anything concrete. So that's the question. Are we on site and or dispensary? There's no regulations yet. I just.
There's
don't know about it.
there's a structure that has been put in place by the legislation, by the state law. There's a structure. There's a board. They've created an agency
I
that's
know.
going to be the tech assistance
I
for the board.
understand, but
Well,
no
let me finish. And then, and there is quite a bit of information about licensing. What you have to do, who you have to go before, what kind of licenses you have to get depending on what you want to do, whether you want to grow it, manufacture it, distribute it, sell it, have an onsite, have a lounge, whatever. The problem the dilemma we face is that we've been given till December 31st to decide whether or not we opt out. You can't wait till December 31st because we have to pass a local law, which is a process, which includes a public hearing. We can't wait till the very end. So that's why we've started this now to try and get a handle on what people in the town want. I think we've mentioned that some of us have heard from town residents. But this is the opportunity for those of you who want to be heard here. We really want to know, what your feelings are, our position is about, do you want dispensaries or lounges in town Pompey? Joe Lorman.
You're good. I don't know if this is the exact right time, and it's not really so much questions. Just things I want to bring up. while you're making your decision.
No, that's why we're doing this. I want to
Um,
hear from you.
So Kaz has already opted out or is opting out.
Mhm.
To me, that means more pressure if we were not to opt out. To have something here, this is where other people would come if other towns around us are opting out.
Just.
It's the
for
village,
clarification, It's the village of
the
Castle.
village option,
Oh, I see.
not the whole town.
It's noted that around these dispensaries and everything, there is a higher incidence of driving while impaired issues. And, we do have a minuscule police force here. And I think the additional police that were here have actually been defunded. And we know Pompey roads are not very hospitable, especially in the winter. I'm concerned about that. People driving impaired. I mean, you can't tell me people are gonna come to a dispensary or a lounge and then drive home not impaired, at least to some degree. So, that's all. Just some things for you to think about. That's it. Thank you very much.
Dan Heck, Krebs Falls Road. I had two things, but now I have three things for you. How does the idea of people buying marijuana at a dispensary and then driving impaired, how's that compare to somebody going to the mall and buying beer and driving impaired? I mean, do we have any statistics from around the country?
Well, I think for one thing, driving impaired.
Okay, I gotta just interrupt for a
I'm
minute.
sorry.
No, there is, I maybe need to be better explained, but I need to, you need to respect his
Yes,
time
I'm
to
sorry.
speak. No, and then, but I don't want to inhibit discussion. I just want to let him have his chance.
I'm just asking for statistics. I'm not saying one way or the other.
I quite honestly, Stan, don't know stats on that. I know that one of the provisions they did put in this law is that you're not allowed to smoke. While you could smoke cigarettes in a car or cigars or pipes or whatever, you're not allowed to smoke marijuana. They specifically put that in the statute. We all know how that works with alcohol. So, it's as good as however anybody wants to abide by the law. But I don't know stats on, I don't know what the stat you mentioned, which was about, there's a higher incidence of driving while ability impaired by drugs around dispensaries. I don't know that, but I'm gonna accept that as okay, that's probably not unreasonable to expect. So, but I don't know the answer to your question,
I
Stan.
can see that as a moneymaker to our police force. Let's sit out there and get some tickets.
Outside the dispensaries, you mean, or the lounges?
Yeah. Number two, with the zoning, how is that affected by the farm overlays? You're talking about the town has the ability to zone a dispensary or lounge to specific places. On the other hand, we have this farm overlay law that allows you to put farm-based businesses on any farm, as I understand it. So can any farm now have an overlay as a dispensary or a lounge?
Overlay districts all require town board approval. So,
Oh, they do.
yeah,
It's a zone change.
it would be a zone.
Okay. Good answer. Number three, let me see if I can remember what number three was. Oh, yeah. I thought I read somewhere that you can't, a place that sells marijuana cannot sell liquor. Is that true, or am I dreaming again?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I have not. If you're selling marijuana and you have a license, they're two separate and distinct licenses.
I understand. But
So I don't know whether there's a prohibition.
I don't know the answer to that.
I don't know where I saw it, but I seem to recall seeing something like that.
Kind of makes sense to me that you wouldn't have to be, that you wouldn't be able to do both. I don't know the answer.
There is on our website, just in case people haven't visited it, We posted a town officials guide to cannabis. It was put out by the Association of Towns. It's a really good synopsis of the law as it exists currently without regulations. But it does, I mean, it does go into quite a bit of detail about, so I'm just saying, if you want, it's a good read. It's not a long read. It's easy to read and it's very helpful. It's been very helpful. Sir, you want?
Yes, hey, Richard Kimball, number 2 Road East. Just based on what I'm hearing here, obviously there's the December 31st deadline. But it sounds like the town also has some ability to regulate the placement of these and whether they're allowed to exist through the zoning process. Is that accurate, or does the town just have to approve them to be somewhere in the town? Do you understand what I'm saying, Matt?
Yeah, the town can amend its zoning code to say, we're only going to allow these facilities in commercial or hamlet districts, for instance. And that's the only place that they would be allowed in the town.
Okay.
Through amending the zoning.
So the zoning, so that would actually need to be amended to address that. So it wouldn't be possible for you guys to decide per se, well, we're just gonna deny every single application from one of these facilities. Okay.
If you're going to allow them, then, I mean, you could deny them all by just saying we're opting out. We're not going to
Right.
allow them.
I wasn't sure if you could do that through the zoning process without actually passing anything. That's what I'm asking, but okay,
We're
We would
learning
have to
about,
opt in
okay.
Yeah.
and then go through that process.
Gotcha.
well, not opt in, just not opt out.
We seek, it's all in the negative. I mean, everything we're saying sounds like we're speaking in the negative, but that's because that's the way the law is written. The state law is written. So it goes unless we opt out of the authority to do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, question.
Just state-
Thank you. West Boulevard. It seems to me the way this law is written, if we do not opt out by December 31st, we can never, ever opt out.
Yes.
It seems to me that if we opted out now and watched to see what was happening
Right.
in other towns, we could
I agree.
opt in later on if we wanted to.
I agree.
Right.
Personally, that's how I've been viewing this after having read everything. But my mind is open to hearing from what all you want or what you think. But if we don't opt out, we never get to opt out if we decide that this is a disaster and we shouldn't have done it to begin with. And
Why?
we're stuck.
Why was the law written?
We just-
So that if we.
You can't, Tony is
Not want to. If we do not opt out now, we can never, ever opt out.
Right.
Right.
And there are towns that have decided not to opt out. Yeah, I think the Village of Fayetteville.
If I could take a stab at that.
Oh, go ahead.
I hate to put myself in the state legislative mind frame. I worked in the state legislature for 12
They
years.
spell marijuana different.
But if we allowed the businesses to exist, in other words, we didn't opt out, and they establish themselves in business, and they invest money in a facility, and they start making profit, and they take bank loans, and they run a business like anybody would run a business. It would be very difficult for you then in the future to say, guess what, we're opting out, you're now out of business. I think that's probably what the state legislature had in mind when they made that choice, but
Yeah,
I
that makes
mean, that's the only thing I can think of.
Could we opt out in, we would say there's no future, if there are businesses that are established, could we say no more future businesses may come in?
But if we opted out, we wouldn't be allowing them.
Right.
We would be denying the dispensaries and lounges, on-site consumption locations in the town of Pompey. It's only if we do nothing that they would be allowed, and then we could regulate them through the planning board with time, place, and manner. But then we can't change our mind. Whereas if you opt out, you can change your mind to decide that, oh, well, look how it's working in, another town, or, we can sort of watch how other towns are doing it, or villages. And I think, is the village of Fayetteville allowing dispensaries? They already have,
My
They already have.
understanding.
yeah, they already
Medical.
have medical ones.
No, my understanding, yes, I don't know about the medical ones, but my understanding is that they are going to do a referendum, well, all the three. of them.
Oh, that's right, they can do a
All the villages in
referendum.
the town are going to do a referendum.
See, they can put it to a public vote. Towns can't do that. I would love to put this to a public vote. So that we could know for sure what the townspeople want. Because it's not so much what we want, it's what the town wants. So, and it's really a difficult situation, because as Sheila said, we don't have the details. So we're sort of a little bit having to decide blind, because they set this arbitrary date which is only 6 months, not even 6 months off now,
Okay,
of having to decide,
so
of having to have a law in place.
if we opted out at any time in the future, we can change our mind anytime, correct?
Yes. that's
Next
my
year.
understanding. Yes, next year.
January, February, whatever. There's nothing saying that we can't, there's no specific date, right?
No, I don't believe there is.
Right now. Right?
Right now. In the law,
If
Okay,
you opt out, you can opt in, you can then change that or reverse that decision in the future.
It seems so easy.
so
yeah,
if you don't make a decision yet, listen, the state put this in front of us and said, here, this is legal. This, the state that said that. So they haven't figured it all out, and no one's really figured it all out. So if we're in the middle of July, we have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 people here, plus us. We're
It's
on
the
a
biggest meeting we've had. though.
well.
No, no, wait a minute.
Nothing compared to
I know,
last year.
I know, I understand.
Lockdown.
I'm just, they haven't figured it all out yet, so I just don't know. How many people do we actually have roughly online right now?
17 are watching on Facebook, and looks like maybe 8 on Zoom.
What's our residents? How many residents do we have? in-
7,300 and change. But
Yeah,
I
so I
just
don't
need
know.
to emphasize again, and I get where you're coming from, Sheila. But we have to make a decision about whether we're going to lose an opportunity to ever have ever change our minds, which if we didn't opt out, we would give up.
So let's say we
opportunity
had one more
by
informational
December.
meeting. We have enough time, right? Do we have
Yeah.
plenty of time?
Yes, we do.
To have one more informational meeting and say, Tohoto residents, we are giving you one more informational meeting, and then we make a decision. It's July. It's the middle of summer. I'm not well informed yet, and that's how I feel.
It just seems to me that we should opt out for now. And if we change our mind later on, we can opt in.
When they get their regulations and get out something we can go by and know what's
That's how
what.
That's how I feel.
I feel too the same way that.
Opt out now.
And I, with all due respect, because I do respect Sheila, I just disagree on this, because I think I don't want to lose the opportunity to
Right.
change our minds in the
It's-
future,
it's-
and I don't want to get stuck with
We
something
have
we
5
don't want.
months, 5 months. and
So,
the
that's, yeah, I know.
state hasn't even figured out what they're
What-
doing yet. They
what we
just put
could
it in front
do-
of us and said, here you go.
Mrs. Counselor Larkin, what we could do is, let's get this newsletter out this month
Yes,
with an article about this. If you want to do another informational session, we could do it next month, but I would recommend so that more people can weigh in if maybe that's a concern. And that, I mean, I pretty much know what I think
Mhm,
I would
know.
do at this point, and I think I'm with Carol here, but, and I think Carl feels that way, but I also want to respect my fellow board members' opinions, and if we could do it, let's see if there's more interest in this. I've heard from people personally, I've had emails and talked to people. The people I've talked to and heard from want us to opt out. I have not heard people that want us
I haven't heard
to
from
run the risk
anybody.
of
No.
not being able to opt to, of allowing the dispensaries. So I'm just putting that out there on the record that I have heard from people. And
On the record, so have
Yeah.
I, and there's no regulation yet. And that's what it comes down to.
but there might
So-
not be any by December.
I
And-
know, I get
Yeah,
it.
I know.
but
So I'm just saying
maybe we
my
put it one more month,
Right.
maybe we give people time, we throw it out there, we get it, the voice is heard and we hear from more people. Maybe there'll be more people. I don't know.
I'm
I don't
just
know what
curious
the answer is.
If you've heard from people, have you heard it both ways? They either
Yes.
both want us to
Yes,
have it.
it's not having it, it's that nothing is solidified in the government yet. They haven't figured it out. They haven't really truly figured it out.
Well,
So.
Sheila, I gotta disagree a little bit on that because I've read the legislation and it is pretty specific about who is responsible for doing what. But they haven't set up, and I think that's what you're talking about, like there's a disagreement about who's gonna be on this board. Once they figure out who's gonna be on the board and who's gonna run the agency and all of that, there is a structure within this law, a process to follow. So, I mean, and it talks about who has, where you go to get an app, if you want to be licensed, depending on what kind of license you want. And what you have to, what the board has to consider
Mhm.
as far as the factors to take into consideration in issuing a license. And one of them is, believe it or not, good moral character, which I found very interesting to put in this law, but I think it's appropriate too. But there are standards within this law. The details, the problem is getting that board established. And I think that's what's going to slow down the process, and why they didn't tie our decision-making to when that board got established. I don't know, because it puts us ahead of making a decision
That's
ahead
what I'm
of,
saying.
but we don't have a choice, is my point, is it's just December 31st is if we, all I'm saying is, let's let it, would the board agree? Let's have another round of, let's see what people want at the next board meeting, or are you ready to make a decision tonight? I guess that's my issue. I think we probably would outnumber you tonight if we decided, but
Somebody else wants
That's
to talk.
part of it.
but I'm open to not doing
Yeah,
that
that's all
tonight.
part
So,
of it.
and you, sir, who wants to
No,
speak?
miss.
You miss.
I'm Sandra Scoville. I'm on Pompey Center Road. And I just want to give our thoughts and echo some of what was said before. I think it makes a lot of sense. For one, you're being forced, if you make one decision, you can't go back. So no matter what your thought is, or if you're not sure, it makes some sense to give the option of, well, we can always change our mind. And I think that's what a lot of the people are thinking. But I also wanted to comment, just, I'm a pediatrician, and I think that it is one thing that the state passed the law that allows this, and we can't do anything about that, and people have different opinions on marijuana and its use and things. But what I see with kids is the more that's allowed and the more that's legal, and even if it's not for them, the more it's okay. And I think there's also a difference between the state saying that and that being a law someplace to having a shop in town that you drive by, that your school bus drives by, that you live near, that allows that or sells it, or you see people in there doing it, or, smoking. And again, not, you say about it says in there about your moral character and things, and not to make judgment on people that smoke or don't smoke or things like that. But I don't think it necessarily is going to do a lot to encourage the moral fiber of our town, or the individuals in it, or the people doing it, or the kids growing up seeing all of that. And I think that's an important thing to consider. It gives a big impression, and the benefit, as the attorney was mentioning, I mean, the big thing that the town gets is potentially money, and is that a good trade-off? Do we want, okay, we need money, so we're going to do it by, allowing the dispensaries, the lounges, or things like that. And I don't think that that's a good thing, and I don't think it sets up a good environment for the kids, you know, seeing that and what's, you know, allowed and available and things like that. I had one other question too, just in terms of the time frame that you're talking about. December 31st seems like a long time away, but I understand what you're saying about you have to pass a law, if I'm using the right term, a local law that opts out. Is the time frame allowable such that maybe, like Sheila was suggesting, we have another meeting and or what you said about the newsletter? Because I think we sort of heard it last minute, word of mouth by somebody else who saw the newspaper, or I think it was in the school paper. We happened not to get, and so we didn't see it. So I'm wondering if there is a way to get more feedback, not just have a meeting, but even put in there something about just call, drop us an email, send it to the town app, something very convenient for people that maybe don't give feedback a lot or don't necessarily know how it all works, to say, we're looking for your input, you know, and just encourage some of that feedback in some way other than a vote that you said you're not allowed to do.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. And I'm glad you mentioned the newsletter because we did put it in the Fabius Pompey School District newsletter, just hoping to attract more participants. And I have to say, attendance, I'm a little disappointed that more people didn't turn out for this because I do.
Signboard out there too.
And we've had the signboard out here for a month, which is only going to catch people on 20, but we've also, Nikki posts it all over, you know, she puts it at the Pompey Mall and, you know, the post office is,
This is a big.
and it is a vacation week. So that's probably the biggest factor right now for us to do it again. Because I do think people are away. And I do think it is a huge issue. I so am impressed with what you just said. That's how you said it. It's a very, that piece is important. Like what's the impression it's leaving on our kids, on the kids. And I also want to mention, because I don't know how many of you live in or near the hamlets, but I would think that the hamlets would be the places where, because that's, if you look at the zoning map, we don't have a lot of commercial. We have hamlet commercial and we have very little actual commercial.
Yeah.
So if it's going to go anywhere short of a farm business overlay that would have to get a zone change from this town board to exist, it's going to go in the hamlets. So I don't know how many, are any of you
There's
from the
three.
hamlets?
3 of them are.
You 3 are? So, I mean, I'm not forcing you to say anything. I'm just, but I'm saying that that's something to consider. Were you around with Mr. Benke and his head shop? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a success, wasn't it? So, you know, the hamlets are gonna take the brunt of the dispensaries. So I would think, I could be wrong, but, so I think we have a lot to consider. I still am leaning towards opting out because I just think we should opt out, but I'm still also feeling like there's not a lot of, this isn't a big representation of our town. So, is there any comment on the virtual?
Yes.
Oh,
I can read it.
Could I just say that?
Yes.
So basically what you're saying, Tim, is we couldn't regulate it to just be medical marijuana
No.
only.
While waiting, I have a comment. How many dispensaries we think we're really gonna have?
Yeah.
I mean, people here know how to grow stuff. Why would they go and buy it if they can grow it? Unless the other towns around are gonna opt out, then maybe we'll get out of town.
that's a valid point,
But I don't think anybody in Pompey's gonna buy it.
Right.
because you,
What you
Well,
said
that's
is,
what you said, out
Yeah.
of towners.
that is a good point, I think.
We know how to grow
I know
stuff.
Towns around us don't.
Yeah.
Oh, discussion, I don't mean that's open.
Just a comment.
that's okay.
Well, in comments, I would like to respond to your comment about what's the difference of, drinking and driving.
Yeah.
And marijuana and driving. Well, there is none, but why have both? You know, why have, now you've got drunks and potheads on the road.
Can
And I think the officers have a more difficult time.
Yeah.
Determining if someone is high on marijuana and alcohol. That's all.
So that was Joe Lorman for those on the virtual screen that can't see him anyway, but that's the comment from him. And then Stan Hack is speaking.
Just comment on his comments. Stan Hack once again. I'd rather have somebody throwing roaches out of their car windows than beer cans on the side. of the road. But on the other
Okay,
hand,
well, we'll cut down on litter, is what you're saying.
on the other hand,
Less litter.
people who are drinking or they could be
Yes.
smoking too, so I don't know. I don't think we're gonna have.
I don't think this is the key issue here.
It isn't.
It isn't. So, but I appreciate the comments, but I don't think that that's gonna be the deciding factors on this, but, Veronica, you said, I see that there's something up there, but I can't.
There's 3 questions and someone on chat here. Jim and Joanne Schoonmaker on Waterville Road.
Mhm.
I feel the decision should not be made before the forthcoming final regulations by the state are finalized. I also feel the decision to allow dispensaries and on-site consumption businesses should be made by all the members of the town willing to voice their opinion, which would be best accomplished through a permissive referendum on a ballot. Although any delay in allowing sales would reduce the income available to the town through tax revenues, more time and understanding of any issues or reconsiderations of the, sorry, I gotta scroll here. Any issues or reconsiderations of the new laws can only occur if the town does not rush ahead with an allowance now. I feel the town board should opt out of allowing cannabis, retail dispensaries and on-site cannabis consumption at this time, and later exercise the option of a voter referendum to learn the feelings of the entire town and thus avoid any resentment or unnecessary criticism of the board making a final irrevocable decision caused by opting in now.
Okay, thank you, Joanne, virtually, appreciate that. And Dr. Scabble, you had another?
Well, just in reference to that, am I correct? As I was understanding, you can't have a referendum now, that's only if the law is passed to opt out and then 10% of the people say we want to change that, then there's really no way to get that public opinion like they're asking for, other than trying to get the word out more, contact us, email us, come to a
Which is
meeting.
why we're begging and pleading.
Input.
Yes.
Carl, have you had any input from anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want it, Poppy. They don't, no one up there is for it. They had their experience with that smoke shop. and
Exactly.
They don't want a
Yeah.
repetition of anything like that again.
1 minute, I just want to ask Judy if you've had any.
I've had a lot and they do not want it. And my grandson is a state trooper. And his problem is, he said, you don't know when you stop someone, you can't arrest them for marijuana. And he said they have a lot of problems as we have now, he said. So why incur more problems by having people smoke marijuana? And we, as a state trooper, can't do anything about it.
You mean
And you're
just the
endangering
personal?
lives
Yeah,
by smoking and driving. You're not being responsible.
so
So I'm against it.
welcome back, Mr. Omazinski.
Oh, you know who I am.
And Omazinski Bush Road, okay, because he's not gonna,
Why don't you let the voters decide in November, or can't you?
because we can't.
Can't.
Oh,
But
you
if,
can't.
if we were a village, we could do that.
Oh,
For
okay.
some reason,
All right.
the law only allows the villages to do that, right, Tim?
Yeah, so. All right.
I have another issue, but I'll wait. till
It
you-
gets complicated when you're talking about mandatory and permissive
Right.
referendum. The town board is elected by the people of the town of Pompey to make decisions on behalf of the people of the town of Pompey. Under certain circumstances, the state recognizes the need for a referendum. They mostly have to do with issues related to elected officials and changing the terms of office of elected officials, or changing the power of elected officials, or changing the structure of our government. And under those circumstances, under municipal home rule law, those types of decisions will go to mandatory referendum. When you're going to spend money to create a district, a special district like a water district or a fire district, or a sewer district. The people in that, where the proposed district is going to be set up, are allowed the opportunity through through a permissive referendum to have a decision on as to whether or not they want to vote to allow that kind of expenditure within their district, because it's going to be money coming specifically from them. But as a general rule, the state of New York, it's not like California where we have propositions. We don't have, our constitution doesn't recognize that. There's no authority for putting things up to the voters, or else we would be putting everything up. Every decision that wanted to be made, that was a difficult.
We have no
decision.
purpose.
You would have no, that's not how our constitution in the state of New York works. The state legislature, when they passed this law, specifically said that we're not going to allow for this to be put up to a vote for the people under municipal home rule law. Now, where it gets complicated is outside of municipal home rule law, under town law and under village law, there's specific provisions for permissive referendum or for mandatory referendum. And in some quirk of the law, under village law, you can put things up to mandatory referendum that you can't on a town level. So that's why villages can do it and towns can. Again, it gets really complicated, but we can only do it under municipal home rule law. That's the only way we can do it. Villages can do it under their village permissive referendum or mandatory referendum law. But again, it gets very complicated. But in the end, the answer to the question is the only way that people will be able to vote on this in the town of Pompey would be as if this board opts out and somebody doesn't like that decision to opt out, passes a petition to get the signatures required to put it up to a vote for the people, to the people. And that would take place probably next year, or at a special election that would take place in the spring of next year.
Thank you for that explanation.
Yes.
I don't know,
Very
but it was helpful to the public. I guess I would like us to make a decision on what our next step is going to be.
You have a couple more comments.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Joanne Huffler,
Huffler,
do you know what she
on
does?
Route 91.
Okay. Well, the first one is, what do you feel is the downside of opting in? She has 3 comments. What do you feel is the downside of opting in? Could the town limit the number of dispensaries? And if you limited the time frame to make the decision, you must communicate this topic with all the community promptly.
What's the last one? If you what?
If you limited the time frame to make the decision.
Time frame is limited. We have to decide to pass. Our law has to be passed, let's put it that way, by December 31st. Because there's a process that we have to go through, we would be really stretching it to start the local law process in like October, November. We should be thinking about doing it sooner than that. So is that answering the third question? I think one of them Tim's got to answer, because I don't, what was the one?
About limit the number of
Oh, yes.
dispensaries.
No, other than two specific zoning districts. Say Hamlet district, but then you can't limit the number of them in the Hamlet district. And keep in mind, the state of New York will be licensing these in the first instance. So that will limit, that by its very nature will limit the number of dispensaries, because they're not going to give licenses to everybody, and there's going to be saturation issues and all of that the state is going to have to determine when they're issuing licenses.
And what's the other question? Oh, about what's the reason to, what?
The downside of opting in.
So the downside of not opting out, because we don't opt in.
Right.
I'm sorry, but it's really, it's true. It's like we do nothing. What's the downside of doing nothing? Is we can never change it in the future. Never. We're stuck. That to me would be the downside. Does anybody have other downside?
No.
That's, to me,
That's big.
Well, the downside of having the facilities in your community, which you don't know what the consequences of those are going to be.
True.
Downside.
True. That's also true.
And that's what we're hearing today.
So
She just expresses must let the community know, mail or email from website.
say that again.
I think her point is that maybe not enough people, you're not hearing from enough people.
Well,
Just what you were saying.
Yes.
and people have an obligation to check our website and our Facebook page because we post about these things all the time. So as part of civic duty, I would, and if you want to share this information, please go to our Facebook page and simply hit share and send it to whoever you want. As I said, we're gonna try and get the newsletter out. Trying to get the newsletter out has become like this thing on my shoulder.
My sister
It
passed
is
away.
so, I know, and
Yeah.
it's been, it's
Wasn't
just
there.
not, it's a lot of work to do it right. And so, but I think we're committed to getting it done. And I'm not gonna say this month because the minute I say that, it won't get out. But I want to, if we're going to try and do another one of these in August, I would like to get it out so that I don't have to hear that I didn't hear about it if the newsletter goes to every resident, every property in this town. So, but as I said, there is a duty on the part of citizens to pay attention to what's going on.
I think.
And we can only put it out there so much.
I think I'm partially sufficed. I think my biggest thing was medical marijuana and not being able to have that if there was someone here. I have someone that is very close to me and he's been fighting cancer for 3 years and God bless him. Michael, his name is Michael Hawk. He lives on the border of Pompey and Lafayette and he's an amazing man. And if he didn't have that
The
as
medical?
part of his, yeah, so for me, that's where I just want to make sure of what we're doing. So
I understand.
it's completely different. So that's where you just take a breather and hear from more people and see where we're going. I feel like I just need a little bit more information and maybe one more meeting. So that's where I am. I think Tim helped me with some of the answers tonight, which was very good. And all of you speaking, thank you for coming and talking about it. So.
Could I just ask one more question, just in reference to that? Am I correct? This has nothing to do with medical marijuana. Whether we opt in or opt out is not going to change the fact that medical marijuana is allowed.
Which.
Nothing to do with it. Just want to.
There's some wrinkle about if, once these boards are all in place, then the law about medical marijuana is going to get zoomed into this in some way. But I don't, but the licensing of medical marijuana has always has been in place for years now. And I don't think
That's
the move is not
that is.
to take that away, it's to actually enhance the use of marijuana, not to take it away.
Yeah, that's where that registered organization comes in. That relates to medical marijuana only, but registered organizations can also sell recreational marijuana and hemp oil, which is all the CBD stuff. So anyway, I think we've exhausted this topic with this group unless I hear otherwise. And board members, what should we do? Want to try again for August and see what we got and then make a decision on whether or not we want Tim to draft us a local law opting out?
I'll make a
Tim draft us
motion.
a local law opting out?
Make a motion
But
that we-
I will keep an open mind. I just really am leaning that way. It just seems.
We have time, and a local law takes 2 meetings.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a month, it's a month process depending on how much public comment we
Yeah.
have and if we want to keep the public hearing open. But because we only meet once a month, that doesn't mean you can't have a special meeting. And
Right. Okay, so we'll put this back on for another go around in the August board meeting and see how it goes and probably decide how to proceed at that point. Everybody good with that? For those of you who came just for that,
Oh.
I'm not, oh, Stan, I know, I'm waiting. You gotta sign in over there, though.
I gotta sign in.
Yeah, if you're gonna talk at public comment. So, and anyway, in any event, we will not be offended, any, is what I meant, if you only came for the one, but you're free to stay. Oh, so, board members, I provided you with some information on the next item, item 5, is we need to set fees for both the application and the developer fees, engineering and legal for tier 3 solar. In order to, I mean, short of us treating tier 3 solar like a regular application, which it's not going to be. John Shaheen did come up with a proposal for how to do this. There are 3 separate levels of review with our solar law for tier 3. The concept site plan review, which goes to the planning board first and foremost, and then overlay process, which comes to the town board as a zone change. And then if that is granted, it goes back to the planning board for site plan approval. So there's 3 processes. John is suggesting that we have an application fee for each process, which I think is smart. Because if you don't make it through the first process, why should you pay for the second two, the second 2 steps? So he is recommending $500 per application for site plan review, then a $500 application fee for the overlay zone change, and then a $500 application fee for the site plan review.
You ain't gonna hear what I gotta say.
How did he figure out these monetary amounts? Like, are there other towns that he?
Well, there's very little guidance,
Yeah.
number one. No, but secondly, speaking to Chris Carrick
Mhm.
at CNY Regional Planning and Development, he helped him a little bit with this information.
Okay,
But also the development fee, which is separate and apart from the application fee, is the more significant amount. And that would be an escrow account that would be set up, but it would need to be covering all 3 steps. It doesn't make any sense to have 3 escrow accounts for one developer coming before us with an application. So he's recommending that we establish $2,500 per stage of the process. So there's 3 processes. So an escrow account of $7,500 that would be paid upfront by a solar company that's interested in a tier 3, going through the tier 3 application.
so Chris Carrick helped him
He
come up
helped
with
him
the
with this.
monetary.
Yeah, I also reached out to the engineer, who's a town of Pompey resident, who handles Manlius and DeWitt. Manlius has had its share of solar farm issues. He recommended at least $5,000 in a developer escrow, because he said the amount of time you're going to need an engineer, especially in the first stage, the concept site plan is going to be the most important stage, because the planning board is really going to be the one taking a look at everything and and deciding whether or not whether or not they would recommend, or what comments they would bring to the town board about proceeding.
So he had said on the concept site plan to put in $5,000?
He said at the beginning, so at the beginning of this whole process, a developer would be asked to put $7,500 in an escrow account.
Okay,
Well, that's John's proposal. I don't think it's unreasonable, because if Tom Chartrand were here, he would tell us that Spafford is requiring the solar companies to put $10,000 for legal and $10,000 for engineering. They've got $20,000 upfront from the developers. So I don't think these solar companies are going to blink at what we asked them to put in an escrow. And Tim's agreeing. So I just think we want to make sure that we don't have to keep going back to them and saying, we need more, we need more. I'd rather have it up front. If we don't use it all, we can give it back. So
Did Tom say what they paid over in Spafford? Did he give us what the bills have been though?
he said that, he did, and you're gonna, he talked, did he talk legal or engineering? Do you remember?
Yeah, he said it was, the engineering fee was higher than.
8,000 and then they budgeted like 5,000, they went over.
I
to
don't
8,000.
remember
thought
quite,
that's
I
what
was
he said.
signing things and we were
think
talking
that's
about
what
it
he
earlier, but suffice it to say that it's not a simple process. So it's gonna, there's going to be costs incurred by the town that need to be covered by with these developers fees. So
So maybe we should copy Spafford and do 10 and 10.
Well, don't
just to
forget, don't
Save
forget,
ourselves.
yeah, don't. The applicant has a vested interest in moving this forward. If you say your escrow account is not low or at zero,
they'll add to it.
they would need to replenish it. That's all. It's not. I mean, the outlay of $10,000 to me seems a little excessive upfront, but.
Do you know what's the escrows in their other towns that have solar? You know,
Usually the engineer will come up with a number and say, yeah, it doesn't need to be a set number, but the engineer will look at the plans and say, you know, this is gonna take 20 hours of my time or
okay.
whatever, 10 hours of my time. But I think the 10 hours, you know, if it's 10 hours of time, it's $200 an hour. That's.
Yeah, and then if it's a second stage.
You're talking our town engineer.
Any engineer.
And
yes.
so did we ask Steve?
I did ask Steve, but he was unrealistically low,
Okay,
in my opinion. But
I don't
our
think, I
engineer, Who
think,
has not done.
I think $7,500 for the professional fee is more than sufficient to get you started. And I think $500 for the application fee is very appropriate.
At each level.
I think, what's our application fee? I know, like for site plan approval, I think it's $250. So
Right.
this is just going, I think, making it $500 because of
Well,
this is a much more complicated type.
it would ultimately be 1,500 if they go through the whole steps.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's unreasonable either. So, board, do I hear a motion? Anybody?
I make a motion that we accept this as our guide for charging.
So the fee would be $500 for the application fee for each
level.
application,
500.
and $7,500 upfront fee for legal and engineering.
Second.
And Carl seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
could I
Opposed?
just,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I'm not opposing anything. I'm in favor.
Okay,
But could
aye.
I just, yeah, that I already said.
We're
I
moving on to the
said it,
next one.
I said it, I thought you were
Motion carries.
finished, motion carries. So the federal government banned a certain solar products and items coming out of China because of child labor and forced labor.
Okay,
Is that our local law? Will it follow that because it's federal government? Will we?
I don't think
stand-
we have to worry about it. I think solar companies aren't going to be allowed to purchase from
Okay.
that area of China because of their human rights violations.
So I just want to put it on the record
Yeah.
that any solar company,
They won't, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
just want to make sure.
you know, yes, I'm not, I don't know.
Yeah, so I guess I want to put it out there that that's important for the solar
Yeah,
companies
I
to
agree.
abide by.
Before we move on, I talked to Sue Smith, who is our planning board chair today, about the fee structure. She thought it was appropriate, but she also brought up a couple things I just want to share. One thing is that she was recommending that we put together a resource guide for both of our boards, both the town board and the planning board. And because she went back through the statute that we just passed, and, it references ag and markets law having to be compatible, or if we're not compatible, so maybe she's looking into what ag and markets law sections we should be familiar with. The soil types, because we talk in the solar laws about prime ag land and other lands. And there is some, those are in our master plan, so, but to pull those out and put them in a separate resource to refer to. Same with the view sheds. There's stuff in our master plan about the view sheds, so let's pull those out and put them in a separate resource for those of us who are gonna have to decide some of these. And then where the three-phase connectivity is in the town, we could get the mapping of that. But she also asked Tim that we could perhaps have both boards, both the planning and the town board, do a virtual training on the process. Just I'm not exactly clear on what it is, the virtual training, but just so that we don't work at cross purposes and that we're all on the same page as far as what we're supposed to be doing. We sort of did that with the checklist for the
That was the purpose of the checklist.
well, so, but I think she's asking to have it done for the boards that are going to be hearing it, hearing these applications. So I'll put that out there. We'll talk about it. She also wondered if there's going to be some standard application form that we're going to use. And I didn't think there would be. I thought it would be per applicant. It's up to them to put together
Yeah,
what we need.
it would be the normal application for a zone change, if it's the overlay district or the site plan
Okay.
application.
So there's nothing we need to do that's specific, like we don't need to create something new.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, if that's,
I don't
do
want.
we
to-
have an application? I mean, I assume we have an application for site plan approval and for zone change. So
Yeah.
those would be,
We'll just use those. Okay. I told her I would bring up her questions. But I think the resource guide for all of us would be great because then we're not, I think one of the other things she was concerned about is that we're all very clear as to where prime ag land is in the town to make sure that we're being protective of it.
Right.
All the different kinds of soils that we have and the same with view sheds so that we're not, you might have an opinion about what's a view shed and I might have it. But if there's something we're all gonna work off of, that's what we should be
Good idea.
doing. So we'll be consistent. So I just mentioned that, so it will probably fall on me to put together this resource guide.
I can help with that.
But
I will
okay,
help you. with
thank
that.
you. So I appreciate that, Ann. Next is the clerk's report, which
Yes, I have for the regular meeting minutes. I was hoping if the board had the chance to review my June 7th meeting minutes drafts. I'm looking for a motion to accept.
Motion to accept the June 7th minutes is presented.
Second.
discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all I have.
Okay, Tom Purcell is not with us tonight, so we will not be addressing his issues. I did share with the town board the two possible new signages for entrances when you're coming into the town. Some of them are badly in need of replacement, but suffice it to say, he got some ideas from Sign Solutions, but no cost. I reached out to them today, but they were too busy doing, they had some project that they had to complete. But anyway, bottom line is, does anybody have any strong opinions about which way we go? Do we go white signage or do we go green signage?
Green.
Green?
Green.
Do you think it's visible enough?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I will tell Sign Solutions. I think Tom thought white, but
Tom did think right. He said it popped more against like all of the green. He just thought it was. But I don't care either way. That's.
yeah, okay, so I will take that back. I'll get some cost for, or Tom will for next month, so but other than that, I'm gonna skip number 7 and go to Tim's report, although I feel like he's already reported.
Somebody asked me if I was gonna talk a lot today. I already know. So the county agreement to purchase digital speed readers sign, I spoke with the chairman of the county legislature last Thursday. He's been working with the county attorney's office to get the intermunicipal agreement in place. they already have drafts of intermunicipal agreements they've done with other towns.
Okay,
We just don't have it yet.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for that.
Yes.
And when I get that, then we will bring it before the
All right.
the town board. and-
Can you please ask them if we could please have it? But I was hoping we would have it actually before now, because I would like to get those speed readers up in the area for farm days for August, because I really want people to pay attention to the speed signs, although there might not be a lot of fast moving traffic over there. I don't know. But I just was hoping we could get those done. So if they can, let me ask this of the board, if we could get that intermunicipal agreement so we could purchase. I think, I can't remember which meeting it was at, but I'm pretty sure I shared whatever it was, the purchases we wanted to make. Would you authorize me to enter into the agreement so we could make the purchases?
So the motion that we authorize you to make.
We already
did it.
I don't know if we've done that.
I don't think, not with the, I'd need to sign the intermunicipal agreement. I
Yeah,
don't
but
think
I
I've done
think
that.
We made the
need to-
appropriation. I think we
The
would agree
money.
to the appropriation.
We just,
We
the
moved
county
on.
agreed that they were going to give us the money for this, but we needed an intermunicipal agreement to be signed, and that's what has been the holdup.
All right, so a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the intermunicipal agreement subject to legal review.
So
That's what I
moved.
just said.
Carl moved, or
Second.
Second,
Yeah, Carl made it.
okay. Any other discussion?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. If I can get it done, we'll get it done. Tim, the reason that second item is on the list is because we've had lots of complaints about somebody using, putting a flag up in the hamlet of Pompey Hill.
Listen, Stan, you need to hear this.
Yeah, I got my hearing.
Stan,
aid.
move up, move up.
Close.
Well, you sound like my wife.
Just so you can hear, so we've had several complaints about that.
House on Cherry.
The sign in the
Yeah,
hamlet
okay.
on Cherry Street that faces Route 20 and is quite honestly somewhat of a reflection on Pompey by having it in that location. But I've talked to Tim about what, if anything, we can do, because we do not have any signage, local laws in the town. Or we can't really regulate speech because it's free. So I would like Tim to address this because it's a legal issue. We don't really have any.
It's a reflection of who we are.
I agree with you completely.
I remember when I was a kid, I used it in the house. Boy, did I get my EASS chewed out. I never use it again there.
I'm not informed. I haven't driven on Cherry Street.
There is one of those signs that has the F word with our president
You ever seen it?
hanging from the deck of a private house.
F Biden.
Yeah, but the whole word.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I ain't gonna say it.
I'm not either.
Okay, so Supreme Court cases are very clear on this issue.
Oh, gee.
Stan.
I know.
Respectful.
I apologize.
The First Amendment
Yeah.
right of speech is protected under the First Amendment. The only time a government can regulate speech, and this is what it is, it's speech by all Supreme Court law. The only time a government can regulate speech would be in situations where it's where you're inciting somebody to do something bad, or where you're threatening somebody, or where you're causing a public safety issue by what you're saying, yelling.
Can I
Fire
fire
crowded.
in a crowded theater?
Yes,
It's the
that's the
law
classic,
school
yes.
example.
So those are the only times government can regulate speech. Now, it's even more particularly difficult to regulate speech when it is political speech. And those types of signs or those types of flags are definitely considered political speech. And the government can't regulate them. It's hard to, difficult to defend the right of free speech when the person, when the object of that free speech is Hustler magazine, right? It's easy to say you can, when everybody speaks and it's acceptable to everybody, that's great. It's the unacceptable speech that is actually being protected.
It's the kid
by the court.
school bus.
Well,
I agree.
but in the end, that's what the court cases have said. In fact, there was a recent case, there were two recent Supreme Court cases. One, I think that took place last year where there is a longstanding policy in the Office of Patents and Trademark that says you cannot trademark or you can't trademark or copyright offensive speech. The Supreme Court has overruled that and said that you can, that is a restriction on the right of somebody to get a trademark for the exact word you're talking about, spelled differently, which was rejected by the Office of Patent and Trademark. They would not process their application for a trademark. Supreme Court said you have to. Just recently, a young girl in one of the schools, and I don't remember which state, I think it was Minnesota, didn't make the cheerleading team. And she published on her Facebook page
I remember
the
that.
exact word we're talking about.
Yep.
And she said, F the school, F cheerleading team, F this. And the school, which is government, state actor, punished her for doing that. And the Supreme Court came out last month and said, you don't have the right to do that, that she has the right to express herself, even in a way which we may find offensive. So that's what the law is. The town of Pompey has no authority to, and I don't know how we would do it. What are we gonna do? Send somebody into somebody's house and say,
That guy up there on the screen.
yeah, we're gonna send Bob
Codes officer.
over there and say, tear down the flag. I think
Yeah,
that
I
would be
mean,
a
the
very
only-
difficult.
It would be, I think, community pressure, and I don't know what else you can do to make somebody take that down. There was another sign just like that in Delphi Falls that people were upset
And
about.
there's one, I took a ride on the west side of the Rider and I went down, we were going for a ride. And then I took a right-hand turn over the hill, which I thought I'd end up in Fabius, which I did. And it was another one of those things. Right in the middle of a neighborhood. They got kids and everything around as well.
Yeah, I mean, my.
Where's our morals and values?
My comment on all of this is I could care less what your political views are and you have a right to express them. I just wish people wouldn't go to that extreme.
You're right.
It's
I mean,
really
right.
an extreme. It's unnecessary. Express yourself. We get it. Whether you like or dislike somebody. I see a hand up in the air. Yes, Mr. Larkin, number 4 road.
Did anybody contact this person and ask them to change the word?
I have not taken, Bob, have you been contacted to ask you to do anything? I've been tempted, Chris, to go over there myself, but I'm afraid.
Come up and say the school bus drives by here.
I don't know
Can you
who
change the
lives
word?
there. Does anybody know who lives there?
I don't know.
Or put a blind in front of
I
it.
didn't recognize the person.
So I could go knock on the door. I don't know if it's a tenant or if it was a tenant, I could get the landlord to put pressure on the tenant to do something perhaps, but the only consolation is that it's not readily visible, like depending on the way you're driving on Route 20, you have to be coming east and be looking across the way onto his deck to see it. So it's not like absolutely in your face on Route 20, but it's right along Route 20.
I know
So, and we got farm days coming with 25,000, whatever, however many people. So
it. I get it, who we are.
will you come with me, Chris? Come with me.
I'll go.
Okay,
Let's go see.
get my bodyguard.
But again,
Thank you for doing that.
as the representative of the town, you are government.
I know.
And you need to be very
Careful.
careful in how.
I'm just, could I say
How you say
that there are many people upset about this?
I think you can say, you can use your judgment.
Okay.
But you're not necessarily doing it as a town official, you're doing it as a resident of the town of Pompey.
I said something to her as I drove by. She happened to be out. You have a good day, sir. Then as I drove off, that's what she said. What the hell was she?
Mr. Kimball?
Kimball, yeah, Richard Kimball, number 2 Road East. So at the beginning of this discussion, to be clear, in the public comment period, I do have a signage issue to bring up. It's different, it's offensive in a different way. But at the beginning of this discussion, there was some talk about the potential for a signage ordinance, which I realize is different from a free speech issue. And I was wondering if you could clarify what the difference is. Like, a lot of towns obviously have signage ordinances. What would stop the town from passing some sort of signage ordinance, which would say, you can't put signs like that in your yard? Or perhaps not regulating the speech, but perhaps regulating the size, the position, et cetera, et cetera.
Those are zoning issues and the town under the 10th Amendment, which gives the police powers to states. We can regulate issues as it relates to zoning a property, especially when it's commercial. Now, there's a difference between commercial speech, by the way, and political speech. So commercial speech is, you can regulate, time, manner, place, but political speech you cannot regulate.
Gotcha. So there's no way effectively for the town to say, residents can't put a sign in their yard that's, such and such size, not saying what the speech is.
If it says, come buy a hat, you can regulate that.
So, but hypothetically, if I was to put a billboard in my yard and it wasn't for a commercial reason, then you're saying essentially that would be okay.
If it's political speech, the state or government actor will have a very difficult time in regulating political speech.
We're gonna have to come talk to you too? No, not to me, but I have a public comment about this, but we can wait till.
Yeah, we'll have to wait till public comment. We still have a ways to go, so, but, Chris? I'll be in touch.
Thought we'd take the friendly route first.
Right, no, and I've thought about it, but not knowing, I've tried to figure out who lives there, and without knowing that, I was not comfortable going there by myself. But I'll go with the bodyguard. So.
He's a good
Okay.
bodyguard.
We'll try, Stan.
Thank you very much for all your time out of it. Can I make a suggestion this morning?
How long is it gonna take?
Have a little microphone.
You know what? We used to,
Oh, okay.
but that's why if you're hard of hearing, please sit up front.
Yeah, I got, back there I have problems. Up here, I don't.
Okay, sit up front if you have.
Yeah, whether that would help people who come after me, that's the reason I say it.
You know, what happened is when we put the audio video system in, it messes, the microphones mess up
Oh,
the
okay.
ability for the
That's fine.
audio to work. So we had to choose one or the other. So, sorry.
That's all right, and thank you for putting up with me.
You're welcome. Tell Gisela we said hello.
You even know her? Jesus Christ. I'm safe no matter where I go. I know everybody.
Okay, so Tim, the other issue, and I know it relates to.
Yeah, we'll leave it out.
Let's get to the end. I mean, let's get to that later. So we are up to Mr. Rodriguez, our code enforcement officer, who's coming to us from who knows where.
Wellesley Island.
Oh, Wellesley.
I'm from Wellesley Island.
You don't need to talk that loud. We can hear you.
Oh, she's turning it down.
Go ahead. I had it up too high.
I'm sorry. As for Stan, he called me, I think almost 3 weeks ago, and I did go look at that sign. And, or that's unstable. So Stan did voice his opinion about 3 weeks ago, and we did go look at that. But there, like Tim says, nothing we can really do about it.
I was saying, let me just, because Stan's having a hard time hearing you because you're breaking up a little bit.
Can't do anything about it.
He said, right, he said he talked to you about 3 weeks ago. Yeah. So go ahead with your.
Sorry, we're on hotspot up here.
Maybe you need to turn the volume back up.
Yeah, I call him up and I don't.
It's his Wi-Fi is not very good connection.
We can still hear him.
Okay.
It's just gonna.
So what's going on with
Okay,
unsafe
we're- yeah, we're
buildings?
Bob, I would turn your
Okay.
video off. Turn your video off and just run your,
That's what I do.
don't- yeah.
Okay. The Chrysler properties. We have given Mr. Chrysler plenty of time to correct these issues. To date, for the last month, he has not been back on site to do anything there. I've talked to the town attorney about this, and now it is up to the town board to make a decision how we want to handle this. Do
So
we want
everybody on the board got notice of what the issues are with the Chrysler property in the hamlet of Pompey Hill?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay,
We
so.
fitted him for safety reasons and security reasons.
Yeah.
Unsafe building openings, the 2 collapsed areas. He started taking some of the structure down, but has not been back there in over a month.
Yeah, and I was over there
Sorry.
last week in that area to get ice cream, and I went up across the street to look at what was going on, and it is definitely, the garage had collapsed from the snow. It's definitely, the interior has been cleaned out, but he's got like boards propping up
Walls.
the walls, the collapsed walls that are just really, is from my layperson's eye, it's not gonna do it. There's no way that building can be
Stabilized.
exactly.
I think so.
So, when's the last time you talked to him, Bob?
About 30 days ago.
Okay, so Tim, our process to proceed with this, and I just want to say, I'm aware of this situation from prior to taking office, because it was an ongoing issue with the previous administration as to how to handle this, and he's been given by that administration so much time and leeway and consideration to try and do what he needed to do to keep the building safe. And I don't know, I think it's almost at the point of no return at this point. But I know we have a condemnation proceeding, which includes a public hearing.
Correct.
So is that the
It's an
next,
unsafe building, it's not a condemnation.
but we would declare it unsafe?
Well, notice will have to be provided to the property owner
Yeah.
that there's a report about an unsafe building and explaining why it's an unsafe building, which sounds to me like it will be easy to explain. And then this board will have to have he will have an opportunity to come before this board and explain why it's not unsafe. And that would be the public hearing.
Okay, so do we have to give him notice?
Yes.
Okay,
At least 5 days notice. Yes, beside this one. He needs to know when he should come to talk to the town board.
okay. And it's a public hearing like any other where the,
No, it's a
It's
public
only
hearing.
for
It's
him.
really for him.
okay, all right. So, Bob,
Yes.
can we work with Nikki and we'll figure out how to get a notice to him to appear at the next board? Let's put this on for the next board
Yeah.
meeting.
Can I just
Yes,
ask a question? So
yes.
if this is a monetary problem for him, your beautification, Main Street revitalization and beautification grant, I don't know what we're doing. I don't know where that's going, but it states you can acquire a property that's an eyesore or demolition of a property that is an eyesore. So if it's a monetary problem and
It's
we
monetary.
just, which I'm assuming, and
Yeah,
I haven't
that's
spoke
been
with Donnie, and I'm
12 years.
sure that's probably what it is. maybe we could think
I-
about it. I don't know.
Yeah, I
to
think
Get
what-
the garage down. I don't know.
No, I agree with you on that.
It's here. It says that we could help him. I don't know.
Well,
That's
we'll
not-
get to that
that's
in a
not-
minute because, well, but that's not exactly how that situation works. Because but this was brought, that beautification funding was brought to my attention specifically because of the Chrysler property. But I don't think we can even consider it until we figure out what he's willing to do. Because if he still wants to keep those structures, that's a problem. If he wants to take some of it down, that's the dangerous piece, that's a different issue. I think that's what we need to figure
Yeah,
out, because I think it's the point of no return, meaning some of that is just not
Right,
savable
but
at this point.
maybe if, you know, he knows that we might be able to help him with a
Yeah.
little bit of it, he'll be more apt to be amenable and speak to us. And I don't know. That's just my.
Well, our code contemplates that if he doesn't do it, the town will do it and
Right.
assess it against the property.
Have we done that before?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, didn't we do that at the top of Pompey?
And
Already once?
Frank Long Road.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did it at the top of
Billy
Pompey.
Platts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
it's not
So
unheard
That
of.
all has to go into the notice that we're going to provide to him.
okay,
Okay, you can help us with that
Yes.
notice. Okay,
okay.
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 So we should set a date for that hearing.
That hearing, could we do it next
Yep.
board meeting in August?
I make a
Second.
motion
A second.
that we have it on August 2nd.
August 2nd.
At 6:35.
That sounds good. Does that have to be a public notice?
Nope, that just has, the notice has to go to him.
Okay,
We can send out certified mail.
okay. All right. Hey, Bob, what's going on next door with the barn behind
Well,
us?
that's my next one. Jane, the owner, is from California. They've signed a contract with a demo contractor to get that barn torn down. It should be starting within a couple of weeks once he hasn't filed for a permit yet. We've talked about the permit. He's just trying to decide how he's gonna dispose of the materials. But that's in process.
Okay, so you'll know better when you get the permit, when he comes for the permit.
He's talked
Okay.
about several ways of getting rid of the materials, and we're not letting him do some of them. We've got to follow the codes on it, and they are having problems with the tenants cleaning the place up. They're renters, they're behind the rent, and they're trying to get the tenants evicted, but they're not, because of COVID, they cannot do that yet.
Okay.
Now, question, Tim, does this fall under codes again? Just like our other situation, can we evict, can the tenants be evicted because of the codes issues?
That's up to the landlord to determine, but he can bring an eviction proceeding. He can bring an eviction proceeding if they are not up to code. Yes.
Okay.
That's not a town issue, Bob. That would be the landlord's issue. Know what I mean?
In other words, not paying rent is not the only reason to evict somebody. You can also evict them if they're not following the code. And if they're getting,
And that's correct, because they're dumping garbage in that barn and around the barn. And that's one of the things I cited them for, was I don't want to call it human waste, but diapers and, how household debris and stuff that. Now, they can't take that barn down until some of their stuff is removed.
It's the game he's playing.
Yeah. And that's the game that's being played on the other eviction situation we have too.
Yes.
So.
All right. So that is proceeding.
Okay.
We do have a homeowner that has a house on number 2 road that most of you know about, that she is coming in, or I have to send her a demo permit. They do want to get their house torn down. Number 2 in Watervale.
All right, okay,
I've had conversations with them on that.
okay.
The only other one that I have on as far as the pertaining to this stuff is a SWIPS issue that I have to notify the town on. I'm sorry, I'm just going through my. Going through my notes. The Pompey Mall, I've served the owner notice for SWIPS violations. And I served them on the 9th. And I spoke with him personally. We gave him so many days to remedy the issues. They have not been done. I talked to Steve Snell about this via email. And now it's up to my department and the town board how we want to handle getting these SWIPS issues corrected.
Oh, well, I don't know. So.
Is that the next step? Is that it's up to us, the
No.
town board?
So
According to my email from Steve, yeah.
he's not in compliance with the site plan or with the stormwater pollution and prevention plan. The SWIP.
That is correct.
So there are things like silt fencing that is down. There are hay bales that need to be in places that aren't. So you need to cite him, and if he doesn't, he needs to go to court. I mean, ultimately, he's in violation of our code, and this has to be determined by a judge. There's nothing, a judge is the one that has to assess the penalties as it relates to that. That's my understanding.
Okay, it's Steve's letter to me, it reads, it is up to the town on what to do next. The notice of violation letter sent to him states if corrections aren't made, the town will hire somebody to complete the work. Is the town willing to do that? And this is my email from Steve. Are we willing to do it, or we want to just?
So can I weigh in on this? Because I happen to be driving by and Don was out with the lawnmower, so I stopped. This was after he'd been served. And I asked him what was going on and how things were going. He's gotten additional, he called it environmental funding, I guess cleanup funding
Yeah.
from his bank. And also, but the problem was that he was running into at that time was that the company that he had done the original excavation was no longer, had moved on to another job.
Correct.
So he was trying at that point to find another contractor to come in if he couldn't get the one back, and he does, and apparently he has the funding. So I think there were two considerations there. So I mean, do you want to revisit this with him when you're back, Bob, and see where he's at?
Yes.
Yes. I'd like to.
Yeah, ultimately, I would love for that site to get cleaned up this month.
Right.
And get the soil removed and the hole closed, but I don't know what his ability to do that is. So if you wouldn't mind.
Nope.
You agree, reach out to him.
Absolutely.
Because I do think it's partly financial, and it's partly he lost his contractor because they moved on to another job.
Right.
Is that?
In his letter to me, part of the reason why he could not get some of the work done that needed to be done was he needed machinery to place some of this SWIPS measures, and he didn't have that. He didn't have them readily available to do that.
And he has covered the piles, and he did admit to me readily that they weren't secured enough before, and that's why he's secured them better, and I haven't seen them uncovered, so.
There's other measures there that he has not done. that
Yeah, I don't know all the details. I just know the things I talked. I'm just reporting what I spoke to him
Right.
about.
I will be glad to visit him as soon as I get back.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Eviction update. I really don't have any update on that. We have an upcoming court date, as far as I know.
Bob, do you know, there's a question, the residents around the house on Pompey Center Road were under the impression that they were supposed to be out on July 5th. But I was at court last night to see what was going on. And I spoke with Judge Cognetti, and he was telling me that his order of eviction was being served on them this week. So I don't know if there was a misunderstanding as to what was supposed to happen this week, but
That was supposed to be a couple of weeks.
well, and I wasn't there a couple weeks ago, so there's just confusion about that. But apparently they were either served, the tenant was either served yesterday or today, and they have 14 days from that time frame to be out. I know that differs from what I'm being told the residents heard at the last court date, so I'm just relying on what the judge told me last night.
He's the one, he would be the best person to answer that.
I know, that's why I'm putting it out there. So, and it's very hard to tell whether they're moving in or moving out. Or moving it all.
As of Saturday, they're still working there out of that barn, and there's things going on there.
Okay. And you and I talked about the fire alarm for the town hall, so that will be addressed next week.
As soon as I have the paperwork, I'll be glad to call them and get that addressed.
All right. Carl, you're next up.
Yes, the schoolhouse repair project. Holger has done a great job over there, HK General Contracting, and it's just a couple of days from being done. And he asked, because he's got some materials that have got to be paid within 2 weeks, if we could fund most of it, or I suggest 14,000 of the 16,800, and then it'd be the 2,800 in August we pay. It would help him out because materials have gone up, and he did a lot of extras. He's got the flashing under the doors the way it should have been when the new doors went in, and it wasn't. The water came in, and that rotted stuff down below it looked like the coffee grounds. And so he's really done a fantastic job, as he did on the first part too. So I would suggest payment of 14,000 each.
1,400?
Yes, 1,400.
Can we make a motion to pay that amount with leaving 2,800?
Yes, 14,000.
And then we don't have a voucher, so we can't sign it yet. You know, we need to sign it, but we all know that the total amount was 16,800.
Right. He could bring that forth, and so we could make the motion tonight, pay Miller upon the voucher.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what Tom is going to require us to do, but I would, if you want to make a motion to pay him 14,000.
Yes.
I'll second it.
And Sheila seconds it, and I will talk to Tom about what we need to ensure payment this month so he can get partially paid, and then we'll pay the balance when he's finished.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carried.
At the same time, I had John Kennedy up here, the sculptor that did the oxen. Sheila came along when he was here, and he's given us an estimate of 1,400 to replace that oxen with concrete and the rebar and straighten it up and make it look like something. And he's available to start it in 2 weeks or three. The board so desired.
The board so desires, but we don't have Tom here to, the only thing I'm pretty sure, I don't know how we would, where our funding is for that, but, and that's.
At the last meeting kind of implied that he could come up with.
That's what I'm thinking, but I just don't know how we do it without him sitting over there and telling us, so. do we want to authorize the work to be done by, did you all get the quote?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I'll take it up with Tom, but we'll have to figure out if we have a line under which it needs to come out of, or if we have to transfer.
So we could authorize that, and I could call him tomorrow morning that he could.
You can tell him it's been approved. We just need to figure out payment.
Pending your discussion.
Pending my discussion with Tom. If that proves to not be viable, I'll let you know.
Yeah, fast, because I'll be calling him in the morning.
Well, you could wait a minute.
Yeah, wait.
So,
The price is right.
I know. All right. Ann? Are you
No,
done?
we have to make a motion for that, basically.
Make a motion.
Oh,
that
sorry.
We paid $1,400 to John P. Kennedy for resurrection work on the left oxen that was hit with the pickup truck that came through both those windows 10 years ago.
I'll second it.
Um,
All in favor?
Yeah. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. And I'll talk to, that's contingent on me talking to Tom.
Yes. Contingent on Renee.
I'll notify him, so he's thinking of it for the two.
Sure.
Then have a chance if we could.
I guess I jumped to you before we did the motion. Sorry, Nan.
Okay.
All right, when I was town clerk, I used to get a lot of calls asking if we had any merchandise with Poppy stuff on it that people could buy. With Farm Days coming up, we thought that would be sometime, something we could get. But we haven't had time to get a lot of quotes together. I talked to one person who lives in town, and we've got to do a couple things. This is what I'm proposing we get, that we can do for the amount of money. Coffee mug and a water tumbler.
With our logo on it.
The new logo of the town. And kind of be proud of Poppy and get it out there. They're expecting a lot of people at Farm Days, and this would be a good outlet. I've talked to Ann Shelley at the Historical Society. They're willing to put it through their sales tax account, so she will take care of paying all of it, and
we would, the way I understand it is, we would need to set up an account to be a promotional fund or.
So under town law, the town has the authority to create what's called a publicity fund. And to provide funding for that publicity fund to promote the town. This would be one of the ways to promote the town. So, but in order to, you need to create it. So I prepared a resolution to create the publicity fund, and it also you've already approved the transfer subject to you passing this, but a transfer of $3,000 to purchase the merchandise, which would then be sold by the Historical Society or in conjunction with the Historical Society. And the proceeds would replenish the fund. Under state law, you can spend up to $25,000, I think, under the publicity fund, but I think this town is just gonna try it, see if it works, and see what the demand is, and go from there.
Could we sell it? Are they gonna be for sale up here as well?
if whatever is left over, I think we'll bring
Okay.
down here.
Okay, so it'll go to the Farm Days first and then.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
can, I think that'd be great.
And as
Yeah.
we, seeing, well, we'll see how the public's, what the public's interest is in that, and if we might, Christmas is coming and we might want to add
Shirts or sweatshirts.
whatever we make from the sale of these, we'll go back to replenish the fund, and then we'll have money that we could take to then purchase more or different or whatever the demand is. And if it's not,
Yeah, the
And
purpose is
maybe
not.
give back to the Historical Society
Mhm.
in some aspect because they're.
Right.
We have to keep in mind the town is not a business. And
Okay,
it's
yeah,
not in the
that's
business of
right.
making
I
money.
know.
But this is, the state again recognizes the benefits of promoting the town and creating town pride. So that's what it's not about making money on it. It's about doing that.
And oddly enough, Tim was telling us earlier that in a different way, the town of Manlius is doing something that's not exactly the same as this, but it's similar in terms of like a,
They have a sustainability committee
Yeah.
that is accepting donations through a publicity fund.
yeah, well, we're not looking for donations, so.
I'll make a motion, we adopt this resolution.
I second. I think Ann made it and Carl seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, so we will. talk
Now,
to
do I need to
Tom.
make a motion to authorize the purchase of these?
No,
No, 'cause that's all-
the resolution
all
authorizes basically the
Good.
supervisor to
Yeah,
spend
give me
the
those.
$3,000 to purchase the
I
merchandise.
have a few things to do tomorrow. You can take this. You should keep this for now. Okay. Bob Rodriguez, are you still on?
I'm still here.
Yeah. Did I cut you off? Did you have anything else? I was going by the list I had. On the, what?
I just, as far as I want to make a comment about the tier 3 solar. After reading John's, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Oh, after reading John's emails about that, the inspections are going to be costly on that. As far as there's going to be a lot of trips for the codes officer up there looking at structural things. The placement and the stands for that. The electrician, the third-party electrical inspectors, that's a different, the contractor is going to pay them direct. But the town is going to incur some extra costs when it comes to doing the inspections on those facilities. And I just wanted to mention that to you.
Well, you mentioned it to us now. Are we okay with what we've got? And
I don't, I'm sorry.
I'm sort of being sarcastic. But Tim is.
Yeah, the fees are for the application process to get approval through the planning board. They're not,
Yeah.
they're not to pay the code enforcement officer.
No, and our code enforcement officer position is hourly, so however many hours it takes is what it's gonna be, and if we need to adjust, we'll adjust.
But won't there be a fee for a building permit when they go?
Yeah.
So that,
But that's it's being suggested as $150.
What is?
Oh, the fee's 150.
The building fee, the building permit fee was suggested at $150. Or did I read that email wrong?
That's 500.
That's the application fee. I didn't see any.
I didn't see anything about a building fee.
No,
I just want to make sure, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure we get enough money in there to
Yes,
cover.
I know, I agree. Unless it was in his email, I only saw the draft of his proposed fees did not include the building permit. And nor did it didn't, I don't know where you saw that, Bob, but
The only thing that we have is the concept site plan, the overlay zone change and the site plan review. Plus development fee deposit, and then there's
yeah,
2 asterisks for the legal engineering fee deposits. But that's all part of that, correct?
That's the application process, approval process.
So, Bob, what are you talking about?
I'll forward this email on to Renee. She can,
okay, if we have to take it up next month, we will, because the building permit's gonna be the last step in the process, so we have time, I think.
John Shaheen has commented.
Oh,
Bob's talking about the unified solar permit,
oh,
not tier 3.
Oh, okay.
Bob, that's the tier 1s and tier 2s, the residentials.
okay, I apologize.
That's okay. Confuses me sometimes too.
Thanks for checking up on us, Bob.
Yeah, I appreciate
No, I'm
it.
glad you're catching that. Thank you.
So, okay, let's run through the supervisor's report and get to public comment. So the first thing on my list relates to retirements and resignations. And last month, Bob and actually a little bit early, gave us a, where did I put those? Gave us a resignation letter. Oh, I know, there's the back here. Effective still July 31st? Bob?
I'm gonna be a little flexible here
Okay.
and work with that.
Okay, so and the board accepted it last month, but then realized it was too early, so he took back his resignation letter and we took back our acceptance, but now we have another one dated June 25th that he submitted. I think you have the original. And so I'd ask, we would need to accept.
Well, again, it's 30 days. So if it's June 20, let's redate it.
Oh, so it has to be 30 days.
Can't be more than
Not
30
from
days.
today.
Correct.
Okay. So we're dating your letter for the second time to reflect that today's date of July 7th, 2021, which would then put your last day of service within the 30 days.
Yes.
Okay, and Leslie, your clerk as well, has submitted her resignation. Did I give, I sent that to you. Yep. Also effective that date. She's not, she didn't swear an oath, so is she okay that it's beyond 30 days from her date of resignation or from her date of?
We're going to redate them both for tonight.
Okay. Okay,
That's when we're accepting them.
okay. And then lastly, on July 4th, which I do believe we're good with, the board secretary for the planning board and zoning board has given her notice. She has some personal issues to take care of in her life. She passing of her dad being the most recent one, but it's affected the rest of her life. And she said she can't really continue to act as secretary. So her minutes are up to date. And she is going to give Judy her keys, but she has also graciously, when I asked if she would stay through July till we could find a replacement, she's agreed. So we have her through July, but we just need to now post it. See if we can find somebody else to be board secretary for planning and zoning. So I gave you that one as well.
Yes.
Okay, so does the board need to do anything other than acknowledge these? Okay,
Just accept the resignation.
okay. So that's number one.
A motion to
A
accept.
motion to accept. That I would move to accept these resignations.
Second.
I think, okay. Judy, sorry, Carl. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That motion is carried. I put ARPA on here, the American Rescue Plan Act, because things keep happening fast and furious, and I gave you the documentation that needs to be submitted by this Friday, July 9th, to make sure that the state knows that we are not declining the money, that we want to accept it. And I need to sign it in two places, so I need authorization from this board to sign the two documents that I provided.
So moved.
Carl moved. Second. Judy seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Tom Chartrand, I'm going to sign these and he's going to upload them. It has to be uploaded by Friday. The only other thing, I'm understanding that the state, which had the right to ask for a 30-day extension to process this whole stimulus funding distribution to the smaller municipalities, asked for the 30 days, which took them into July, but we should be this month receiving the first half of our money. And it's still not clear to me exactly what the amount is going to be, but the total is somewhere in the neighborhood of $750,000-$50,000, but we'll get half of that this month. We have until the end of 2024 to determine how we want to use the full amount, because we'll get the other half next year. I have a lot of things I would like to discuss with this board. I don't think we want to take the time. I don't even know what time it is. It's almost 9 o'clock and we still have public comment tonight, but I don't want, I'm pretty sure we're gonna get this money this month unless they can ask for a second 30 days. And then after that, they have to give us the money. They cannot hold it back from us. The federal government gives it to them and they give it directly to us. So I guess we little towns can't be trusted to get the money directly. So it has to come from our big daddy, the state. But because I don't know why the bigger municipalities have all gotten it directly. But in any event, there is a lot we need to look at and discuss. And not only that, but the new business with this new funding that the county has just offered at the end of last week, there's 2 different funding sources. So I would love to have just a separate meeting where we just talk about funding. Because there's so much right now to go through. It's almost overwhelming how much funding has been like put at our doorstep. And we have to figure out responsibly how we want to use it.
Well, we already met in April once about the American Rescue Act. So, I mean, just to inform everyone is.
Yeah, and it's very, I mean, this town's infrastructure, and I'm talking town government infrastructure, is badly in need of many, many repairs. So in my opinion, some of the money could go to that. And I'm not suggesting that's what we'll do, but I'm just throwing out the concepts. That and the hamlets really need improvements. The hamlets have really suffered. So I would think that that's another way we could spend some of this money, but there's also small businesses in this town that suffered from COVID. So maybe we can figure out, but there's a lot of money on the table and we need to be responsible about how we spend it. So I would love to schedule sometime this month, perhaps. Could we do like a workshop kind of thing on ARPA?
Sure, love to.
So I'm wondering when. You have a calendar.
I do. I'll do it August.
So. I mean. So this is zoning, planning. So the first Mondays the second, third Monday's already taken, and if we could do it on a night other than Monday. Just don't know what people's schedules are.
Tuesday and Wednesday.
I was gonna say Tuesday or Wednesday are
Tuesday's
better
court.
for me.
Tuesdays
Yeah,
are court nights.
I'll be
What's this
gone.
What's
Historical Society,
What, Carl?
as long as it's not the month of the Historical Society, anytime.
Oh.
Maybe Thursday.
They don't have anything. Have they told you anything?
No,
I think they're all right in July for the historical.
Okay.
So if we can schedule a time to talk about all of our funding, we can talk about, I've given you the information that I got from the county executive last week about the 2 other funding sources, the Main Street Revitalization and Beautification Grant that Sheila referenced before, but also the fact that the county's stimulus funding some of it is being put towards capital improvements for towns and villages, and that's another opportunity for us. So there's a lot of funding that's coming down the pike, and it's really almost overwhelming to figure it all out. But I think we all need to sit down and have a discussion and go through these opportunities and see what we think and what we want to spend money on. And I would, it'll be, even if it's a workshop, it's still public, so public can participate. So let's pick a date.
I'll be gone the 16th through the 25th.
You do Wednesday, the 28th.
You're gonna be Wednesday, the 28th, or we could do that Monday, the
I can do that.
26th. Oh, wait a minute, you're gonna be back on the 20th.
I'll be back on the
Why
28th.
don't we just do the last Monday in July?
Judy won't be here.
Judy
Yeah,
will be here. So how about
yeah,
the
I'll be back
28th?
on
No,
the-
she said
yeah, I'll be
she'll
back.
that
Oh.
Sunday.
I'll be back on the 25th, so I'll be here on the
Oh.
26th.
Okay. All right.
What time?
Okay. July 26th.
6 o'clock. Is
6
that good
o'clock?
for everybody?
Yeah, 6 o'clock. is
Carl?
good.
Yep.
Okay, so let's do Monday,
July
July
26th.
26th. Now, that needs to be noticed? Yes, okay. At 6 p.m. Okay.
Just a regular special meeting notice, no,
Okay.
no public, no legal notice.
Okay. The only update I have on the preserve drainage project is that it might be it might be eligible for ARPA funds. Because it's a special district and stormwater is considered and drainage are considered eligible for those funds. But the other piece is also that the surveying work is going to be scheduled for, I want to say July 14th, but it could be the 18th. So that's what we're waiting on. Steve's estimate is we might not get to this project till October. I said, move it along, but we'll see. I'm hopeful. The only update I have on the SAM funding is that we got acknowledgement from the state and Tom is helping me fill out the forms we need to move the process along. So I'm just telling I'm informing the board of this more than you guys probably could care less, really, but yes, Chris, I see you nodding. I just mentioned the funding for the new funding, but we'll talk about that at the workshop. So I'll bump that. As far as NYSERDA goes, we got our second notification from NYSERDA that we got our second benchmark out of, so we've got 2 out of 4. If we can get that unified solar permit back up and running on our website, we'll have the 3rd one, and then we just need 1 more, and then we're eligible for NYSERDA funding. So that's for that. I gave you all information on a piece of property that the town owns, unbeknownst to me. I did not know we owned any property in Pompey Pines, but we own 1/10 of an acre in Pompey Pines. And someone wants to buy it. So luckily one of our planning board members is a real estate agent, Karen Whalen. I asked her if she would be willing to look into what that property is worth. I gave you the assessed value, which is $500. But she also did some comps. She had to go to Chittenango and Clay, I think, or North Syracuse to find anything that was close to 1/10 of an acre. So her recommendation, after all is said and done, was her opinion is that the property is worth anywhere between $500 and $1,287. And that if you split the difference, it would be $893.50. Recognizing that we need an easement on that property because it has the drainage pipe that runs underneath and the highway needs to get at it. And this person is willing to provide us with an easement if he could have the property. I have not approached him on a price, and I'm asking the board what they think would be a reasonable price. The one thing I will note is that this guy has at times over the years maintained the property and cleaned out the pipe. So
we should give them a deal.
So you might want to weigh that in considering what we should offer. I mean, we're not talking like we own like the palace, it's a little piece of land that he's willing to still allow us to be on, but he would like it for privacy purposes. So any thoughts, guys, on what I should offer him? Because I haven't gone back to him yet.
$1,000.
Oh, Carl.
No, how about $750? It's $1,287, but he's been keeping it up, so what, $800?
I'll take back whatever everyone thinks is reasonable. I just don't, I do think he deserves some consideration for having, I don't know what he's done exactly, but I know he's mowed it at times and.
What do you think, Ann?
900.
$750?
Did you say 800, Carl?
He said 9. I'll go with 9.
900.
Carl, you strike a hard bargain.
This is valuable to him. He wants it.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
All right, let me go to him with $900 and I will let everyone know and I'll talk to Tim because we're gonna need to make sure we get an easement. And we'll go from there.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Luckily, it's not like, as I said, a big piece of land. I will tell you that as far as upgrading the phone system, Nikki and I have had a really good discussion with somebody that our IT company that manage it, and Dan Bender recommended. So we were able to virtually have a meeting, and we've given them all of the features that we really need in a phone system. They believe that we will be able to save money by restructuring how we do our phone system here. That's in the works. I was hoping to have more information for you tonight, but I don't. So
that's based on what wait, don't we have like a $623 bill?
we have, that's what we pay every month
Right.
and we have 14 lines, and I forget how many fax lines, and I'm not sure all of them are even being used, or if the fax lines are being used, and we're paying for all of that. And so anyway, looking into it, hopefully I'll have something for you next month.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. The Pompey Historical Society has figured out where the church is over there that won't be in the way of the white rock that they want to move. The Jerry Anvil, author of the Pompey Hollow Club books.
Antle.
And what did I say? Anvil? Well, that's a.
Yeah.
Antel.
Strike that. Yeah. So they want to know if we would approve the location of the White Rock, and they will have Rick Clancy move it with some other assistance and put it over there. And Mr. Antle is willing, he has a plaque he's ordered that will go along with the rock explaining what it is. So can we approve the location of
Sounds good to me.
the rock?
Yeah.
I would make a motion. We tell the Historical Society they have permission to place the rock on our property
Right.
over
Yes.
there. Yep, second up.
Second.
And second it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those are good guys.
Aye, aye, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. The last item is off the agenda per the Pompey Historical Society. They want to wait on that. Veronica, there's a sign-in sheet over there for public comment. I don't know if you even signed in, anybody who's still here.
I didn't sign in.
Did you sign in?
I did sign in, yeah.
Okay.
I'm scheduled more in advance than.
No, you were here first, so.
Okay.
So, I know what John's here to talk about. I have no idea what you're here to talk about.
Okay.
And then we got it. Oh, wait, do you want to sign
Kevin's
in?
gonna sign.
Oh,
Yeah.
But then you can give it to me and
Here you go.
so, Mr. Kimball,
Yes.
you have, is that okay, John?
I prefer it this way.
Uh,
So we actually have another signage issue over on number 2 Road East. I don't know if anyone's driven down number 2 Road East recently. So look, have you seen what I'm talking about?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
It sounds like a grudge match between
So-
neighbor and neighbor.
I'm gonna just show you guys a few photos. I've printed out a few photos, but basically our town does not have a signage ordinance or a
Nope,
fencing
no.
ordinance. And my family is a little bit victim of some signage issues. And you can
Show
take
it
a look at the pictures.
Show it to Tim because Tim's gonna.
So,
Can I have my glasses from?
yeah, and anyone in the crowd who would like a set of pictures is welcome. to have them as well.
Are they working?
It took Ian.
Do they work?
Let's let him have the floor because we.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I get right in the corner.
John's seen it as he's driven by.
I see it every day.
Yeah, so, I'll just, yeah, so you guys can see what I'm talking about here with the posted signs and, yeah, so my name's Richard Kimball. I live at 8356 number 2 Road East. I'll just tell you exactly where I live. You guys can see it as you drive down the road. It'll be very easy. In front of you, you'll find a package showing recently installed offensive signage around my residential property and those of my neighbors. There's approximately 150 signs posted, all no trespassing signs. My family would like to request the town's help in addressing this issue. I recognize that currently town codes do not address the height, location of signage. They do not address the size of signage. I think in these pictures, you can see why it might be valuable for town codes to address this in some manner.
Can you explain to us why this has happened?
We don't know.
That's excessive.
We've attempted to address these issues with these particular neighbors and we've literally been laughed off. Law enforcement is saying that this does not constitute harassment. currently. There is a chance that others might disagree. This is not an area that can be hunted. This is a residential area. These signs are posted within about 10 or 15 feet of the road. They are posted everywhere. We can't look from a single angle on our house without seeing orange no trespassing signs. This applies to 3 of our neighbors as well. So you can see photos of the no trespassing signs immediately next to children's swing sets and play areas. Our kids are like literally terrified. So my 4-year-old daughter, I have 4 kids, actually went and hid when one of these individuals drove by yesterday, like broke my heart. Our neighbor's child is also 4 years old, and she's petrified of going across the property line because she feels that if she crosses the property line, she's going to get arrested immediately. Our family just can't enjoy our property this way. And we also spoke with our real estate agent yesterday, and our real estate agent told us that if we wanted to sell, like the state police were recommending, that we couldn't sell our property, even in the current market.
You couldn't?
Why?
It would be extremely difficult because of the signage. We've attempted everything reasonable to address these issues. We installed fencing to block the signs out. We installed trees. We attempted to talk to the people. On July 4th, on Sunday, the signs were elevated by 6 feet to go over the top of our 8-foot privacy fence. You can see that in the photos. There's a photo showing the sign sticking up over the top of the fence. I'd encourage you guys to drive down number 2 Road East. You'll see the signs right there sticking up over the top of my 8-foot privacy fence.
Renee, this is Bob Rodriguez. Mr. Kimball, Rick.
Yeah.
I would like you to go back to the beginning and explain how this whole thing started, please, so the board has a better idea.
Yeah, there was a dispute with this particular individual regarding the use of our property and the perception that the property was utilized as a business. We disagreed with that perception. However, we relocated the potential business use off of the property.
All right, and then the second situation
There was a concern regarding an underground utility line installed based on an outdated piece of survey information. When an updated survey was ordered, we learned that utility line was incorrectly installed, and we spoke with Bob and immediately moved that line.
Correct, which he did. This has been going on for pretty close to a year and a half.
Yep. At this point, there's nothing within the bounds of the code and the law that currently addresses this issue. But as you can see, based on the photos, this is something that probably at some point the code needs to address. I'll tell you that the next threat from these individuals is that they're going to install barbed wire fencing right next to my children's play area. I'm very concerned about that. I'll be honest with you. And if they listen to this, I guess that's giving them a little power. I realize it sounds like it's a neighbor dispute, but I get that. But I think this is offensive to the sensibilities of the whole community. I don't think this is political speech. This doesn't seem like something that would be protected in that way. I've spent my career working in building code compliance and different things like that. And it seems that signage permits and requirements are an accepted and reasonable means of governance under municipal building code. It seems like this is very clearly offensive. This is clearly offensive to everybody. And this is something that should be corrected. Like I said, there's 4 or 5 families that are affected by this. I think 4 families affected by this. And it would be excellent to see something done. I'm happy to show anyone on my property exactly what's going on. I suspect more signs will be posted by that point.
May I ask the address of your next door neighbor?
There are 2 neighbors. It's actually a family on both sides. So it's actually at both sides of our property line. So literally we can't look in either direction. It's 8378 number 2 Road East is the one property, and 8330 number 2 Road East is the other property.
And their family members?
The names?
They are family.
Yes, correct. It's the son and the parents. Yes.
So they're on both sides. You have
Yes, ma'am.
no trespassing signs.
Yes, correct. And within 100 feet of our house, we have approximately 15, I think, or 20 no trespassing signs, including the ones that are posted directly next to the children's play area, our deck, and over the top of our 8-foot privacy fence. Our neighbors, as I showed you in the pictures, have 7 no trespassing signs posted directly in their backyard, directly behind their children's play area, directly behind everything in their yard, right next to their fire pit, right next to everything. I cannot overstate how much this is affecting the mental health of our children. I would want nothing more than be able to honestly get out of this situation, which is what we've tried with these individuals. But it's, unfortunately, we can't sell, to be honest with you.
Bob, have you talked to the people that have put the signs up?
On several occasions.
What's been their response?
They originally put the signs up because Mr. Kimple was putting a fence up. It goes back and forth. The house that he lives in now used to be the daughter's house. It's just an ongoing issue between the two that.
An ongoing issue, is that what you said?
I will say,
We
Bob.
can't do anything about it. As far as codes, I can't do anything about it. I've sat down with both. I've sat down with both parties trying to resolve this on several occasions, and the neighbors are not cooperating.
I will say that our family is willing to cooperate in any way possible.
It's
Yeah,
gotten
but-
worse. I thought they would take the posted signs down once Mr. Kimple put the fence up.
Aren't there rules about posted signs and number of posted signs and
So they
the
far apart.
distance between each
Yes.
one?
So the penal law requires trespassing is of course illegal. But in order to enforce that, my recollection, I'm trying to look it up now, but
Send it to ECL, Environmental Conservation.
it's either, well, it's also the penal law and posting of the signs. And my recollection is they can't be any further apart than 660 feet. But they can be closer.
Yeah.
They can be closer than that. So the law recognizes that people have a right to post their property.
Yeah.
And, but I am not an expert in that, and I'll have to look into it a little bit further.
I will say, even though it's being framed as a neighbor conflict, I will say that it affects a number of other people other than myself and this particular family who have not filed complaints because they're just kind of ignoring it, but the psychological effects are still there on their families.
What's the psychological effect? That people are, that your children are looking at no trespassing signs, or that you are?
Yeah, that the kids are afraid that they're going to be arrested if they accidentally throw a ball, 2 feet to the side, or if the animal runs over there or something like
Who's
that.
giving them that impression?
These individuals, they're patrolling.
Do
the
they talk,
property
do they
line.
talk to your children?
No, they're making gestures and other things. But yeah, I mean, Mr. Rubinsky has seen this as well, I think.
I live around the corner.
Yeah.
I've seen the fence. I didn't realize about the
The fence is just there to block out the
trespassing
signs.
signs. I wasn't paying attention to that, but I did notice the fence because it looked new.
So, if the town can't do anything, we'll put up, a, 12-foot fence or a 15-foot fence, but the signs are just gonna go higher.
Well, number one, I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. But secondly, I'm gonna tell you right now, we're gonna need to, I want Tim to look into it, and I'm not sure I mean, in some ways, this sounds like harassment to me, but I don't, and I know that,
There's a legal definition for harassment.
I know,
And-
intent to threaten, intimidate, blah, 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 but I'm just saying that just because I know why the state police are saying that, it's not harassment, but there's all kinds of ways that you can harass people. And if I had the penal law in front of me, I'd look it up too, what harassment is, but I don't have it in front of me. But I appreciate the circumstances. I think we all do. I shouldn't speak
Yeah,
just.
it's
yeah,
terrible.
And I can't imagine living like that.
Can't either.
You got to give us a little bit of time to think about it.
That's just fine.
It's
And
brand new to
if
me.
we want to blow this up into a bigger issue, I think it points to potentially, when I put up my fence, there was a code complaint when, and everything associated with the fencing and the signage. I just think that perhaps as we move forward, that may be an issue that the town wants to explore regulating. I think there may need to be some more clarity of regulation in regard to those things. And I'm sure Bob would agree with that since he had to come out and deal with those issues.
Renee, would it be worthy to make a phone call to the parents or the person?
You mean the people over?
Yeah.
On the other side.
I would want my bodyguard.
Yeah, you're on your own on this.
You know what?
I said a phone call. I said a phone call.
What? Bob's talked to them several times.
I
it
will.
sounds like.
Renee, I will go back over and talk to them. I have no problem talking to them, and I'll see what I can do. I'm not.
And you
gonna-
might want to mention to them that this has now come to the attention of the town board that's looking into to it. I don't know what we'll just, what we really will rely on Tim's advice to us because yeah.
I'd like to hear from Tim, but I will go talk to them. I have no problem talking to either one of these, either one of the people.
Okay.
I've done my, and we've done what we could to talk, try to talk to them to try to diffuse things. I'll be going to talk to them again.
Yeah, and without belaboring this, I will just tell you, as a former prosecutor myself, property disputes are the worst.
Yep.
The property owners get set in their ways and you can't budge them.
I know.
So I'm just saying, it was always the hardest cases to try and resolve. And then people just get crazy with it and do things like this. So it's just.
So sorry.
Give us some
Yeah.
time. Let us look into it. Let Bob talk to them again and we'll talk with Bob but I appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
Rick, I'll be talking to you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
My issue is a lot easier. My name's John Rapinski. I live on Orange Gulf Road, almost 20 years now. And I got drawn into this issue I'm about to present to you because I've got a real in-depth knowledge on deer biology and deer management. And I had a lot of hunting groups and conservation groups and different sportsman groups contact me and wanted me to get involved. And I looked it over and I decided it was worthwhile. So what this is about, it's about keep the town of Pompey open for the holidays. And I don't know if a lot of people know about the holiday hunt, but the New York State DEC policymakers in Albany recently extended the deer hunting season across the southern zone of New York State from December 26th till January 1st. This decision was made primarily to benefit some DEC employees so they could deer hunt on their paid holiday vacation and is called the holiday hunt by most people. Much of the regulation process was truncated, such as no human dimension studies or stakeholder input. Generally speaking, when the DEC does a regulation change, it's kind of customary to do a lot of human dimension studies. They generally in New York State hire Cornell University and they hire the groups that it affects the most, generally speaking, sportsman's group because it's hunting type stuff. New York State statute most likely prohibits the DEC from trying to expand this program into the northern zone as the DEC has a different regulatory authority is issued to them per the state legislator. So New York State is broken up in the legislature, New York State legislature between the north and the south. So there's legislative authority in the northern part of the state is one part of the environmental conservation law, and then the southern part is another. And the one in the north is actually a lot stricter than the one in the south. The north, through legislative process in the past, they got fed up with what the DEC was doing, so they kind of shored up the regulatory authority that the DEC has. They actually took away a few things or made it more difficult for DEC to just do what they did here in the southern zone. So the DEC commissioner is Basil Sagos. He states that the extended deer hunting season isn't needed to control deer populations. If anyone knows anything about deer management, I've got a real in-depth background. I've been to every country about deer and deer management, and I've presented in front of the governor's office, all the top DEC people, several commissioners at Albany, all across New York State, a lot of different countries. Amish people, Mennonites, farmers, on and on, lots of sportsmen. But I got a real good knowledge of deer management. So deer populations are controlled by one thing only, killing female deer. So extending the season does nothing. If you want to control deer populations, it's all about issuing more doe permits in New York State. So, and the DEC's got the deer numbers right where they want. They got an antiquated model that they use. It takes 2 or 3 years of trend setting to find out that if the deer populations are going up or going down. So things act like, you know, they're maybe not paying attention, but they are. They just have a model that's kind of old. So if the DEC wants to lower deer numbers, all they need to do is issue more doe permits, not extend the season. It is rumored that the DEC's own deer biologist presented against the holiday hunt. A deer biologist I know said they went in and they presented to the top DEC people against the holiday hunt for various reasons. I tried to foil that information, but it's an internal memo, so it's not available. One retired DEC deer biologist believes more deer could be killed with a shorter season instead of a long drawn out season that few participate in most of the time. So I've been talking to a lot of the deer biologists. A lot of them know my name in the state because I presented with them or in front of them. New York State now has 38 days of modern gun and muzzleloader hunting season, more than any other northern state and extending further into December than most. And there's a handout that I've got, and the handout is called Northern States Deer Hunting Season Length. And when it ends on a calendar, New York State has 38 days, ends January 1st now. Wisconsin has 19 days, ends December 9th. Michigan, 25 days, December 13th it ends. Ohio, 15 days, ends January 5th. Vermont, 25 days, ends December 12th. Pennsylvania, 15 days, ends December 12th. And this doesn't include the primitive seasons like the archery and what have you that aren't so invasive. So right now, New York State has double what a lot of these states have. We have so much deer hunting. I'm a deer hunter, very avid hunter. If anybody knows me, they know my name usually goes along with deer hunting. I'm all for deer hunting and promoting the sport and what have you. But you know, enough's enough kind of. So we have way more deer hunting than any other northern state. So no sportsmen deer hunters, no sportsmen groups or deer hunting groups ask for the holiday hunt. And it appears that majority of deer hunters and sportsmen are in opposition to this regulation. I had a folder I dropped off that must be around here someplace. And I've got a lot of copies in there. It's from the Trappers Association, the Houndsmen, they're another hunting group, from deer hunting groups all across the state. Nobody really wants this. Conservation Council, the majority of their memberships against this, they're supposedly the biggest one, even though I don't know how much participation they have. So this oddball person obviously wants this, but for the most part, it wasn't asked for by sportsmen, wasn't asked for by deer hunters. The DEC received about 1,500 public comments in deep opposition to this regulation during the public comment period. I foiled those, read them all, and there's a handout here where there's a summary of comments received by the DEC. Now, if this wasn't something that was wanted by the top guys in the DEC, with this many negative comments come in, they would have never gone forward with it, but they kind of buried it. They didn't expect somebody was going to actually foil them and read them all and categorize them. But I did, because I'm working for a bunch of people for free, actually. I'm not really working paid. So the holiday hunt isn't a deer hunter's issue. It's a rural landowner and economic issue is what we figured. Deer hunters in this state have more than ample time to deer hunt. Most deer hunters I talk to, they agree the season's too long. A lot of deer hunters would like to see a shorter season. A few years back, the DEC did a human dimension study with Cornell University, and they've done a lot of them over the last 10 years. I've read them all from page to page. And one of the questions in there, would you like to see a shorter deer season? 49% said yes. 51% said the season's fine just the way it is. So they don't have anything to go on. So I was involved in the process a little bit from the beginning. I was presenting in Albany at the DEC's headquarters about 5 or 6 years ago when Director Rexinger was retiring. And a new guy, Tony Wilkinson, he just got the job. And so we, myself with a bunch of sportsmen, we went in there, we gave him a nice presentation. We wanted to meet him. He's a new director, or actually the chief name they call him, Director of Chief Bureau of Fish and Wildlife. So we met him, gave him a presentation, seemed like a nice guy. Day one, he comes up to us, he goes, "Hey, you guys want to carry a ball for me?" We said, "Yeah, sure. What do you got?" He goes, "I'd like to extend deer season all the way to January." And everyone in the group thought it was a bad idea. We go, "Well, Tony, why would you want to do this?" He goes, wow, I have a paid vacation. I can hunt on my holidays. It would really benefit me, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'm not even joking. He admits to it. This is all about him still today. So Commissioner Basil Sagos has agreed to let local government opt out, and the DEC is in the process of creating a regulation for this. Other counties have produced resolutions in opposition, Madison County being one. I've got a copy of Madison County resolution here. There's one in your folder also. I believe Wyoming County has a resolution from hearsay. I also think Oneida County might be in the process of making one, and Oswego and Albany County, I think, are in the process. Hunters really don't want this, especially in the northern zones. And the big reason is, Kevin will tell you in a little while, he's from the Stoneville Association. You know, it's not just a landowner thing for me. We can't use our property during deer season. And anyone around here knows poppy is fragmented in a lot of small parcels. You know, no matter how much land you have, you know, you don't know who's hunting right next door to you. It's really the wrong thing. So everyone just kind of stays off the landscape until deer season's closed. The snowmobile trails don't open up till after the deer season is over with. My wife and I don't walk our dog down the property, you know, everyone stays up, it's all for deer hunters. And even you can see in Pompey, by that third or fourth week of deer season that we have here, we have such a long season, people really stop participating. There's very few people left out there hunting. And, you know, there's a few people say, well, you know, I could take my kids out hunting for Christmas. You still can. We have a small game season. And historically speaking, knowing what I know, most young hunters are recruited through small game hunting at a young age. And so if somebody wants to go hunting on their Christmas day, I don't go out squirrel hunting or rabbit hunting. It doesn't close the snowmobile trails, doesn't stop my wife and I from cross-country skiing, doesn't shut the whole county down. And that's what's going on. And so I'm hoping we're asking that the town of Pompey adopt a resolution opposing the holiday hunt. And I've got that in the handouts. And, you know, the resolution doesn't have any really legal binding teeth where it's going to be a law, because there's no mechanism, I guess, in the ECL that allow a town to opt out of this hunting season until the DEC finishes their regulation. But I want to present it to Dave Knapp, who's our representative here, because he's, you know, wants to make sure there's enough support before he goes forward with a county resolution, opt out the whole county. So I think it'd be a real strong message to Dave if we have a resolution from our town to give to Dave, and I think it'd make him feel better. He's got a resolution sitting on his desk right now from our group, and I think it's just waiting for Dave to, you know, send it up for a vote. And I've talked to all the county legislators, or most of them, I should say, some I didn't get a hold of. And everyone felt like it wouldn't be a big deal to push it through the county. They think there'd be a few people against it. I know Brian May's dead set against it. And that's the main reason why Dave Knapp doesn't really like the idea, because his best friend supposedly is Brian May, who's his #1 guy, I guess. So, but I think Dave will be fine once we, maybe give him a town resolution and convince him a little bit more. And also I provided numerous opposition memos of various groups, Farm Bureau being one. Farm Bureau's against this. They have a position statement against it. New York State Snowmobile Association, who Kevin's with, New York State Trappers, New York State Houndsmen, and multiple deer hunting groups and foresters. And I practice silviculture, which is forestry. And most of my clients I do for free because they're my friends, but they all tell me the same thing. I'll see you the day after deer season. So now foresters really lose an important week. Not everyone's going to tell a forester and get lost during the Christmas holidays, but that's a real important week to a lot of foresters, because as soon as deer season ends, a lot of people don't want people on their property during the deer hunting season because they hunt or they just don't want the conflicts. There's a whole host of reasons why they don't. So it's upsetting for foresters. We lose out economically. Guys like Dan Palladino with Heritage Hill, I know he's highly opposed to this hunting season because closes down snowmobile trail and he's going to lose revenue. And ski centers are another one. I know we just lost Tigerberg from the sound of it, but there's other ski centers around here, and it shuts the whole county down. It's really not necessary. It's not a deer hunter's issue. Most hunters that are in favor of it, once you explain it to them, it's not a deer hunter issue, it has nothing to do with managing deer numbers. Then they get it and they say, yeah, we got plenty of time up field. We really don't need this. Most reasonable people. You got any questions?
Sure.
Well, I'd like to just add one comment if I can, or just.
Will you just say who you are?
Oh,
I know you're on here,
so I'm Kevin Koenig, and I've been involved with the Lafayette Trail Riders since I moved to this area. For about the
Where do
last
you
20
live?
years, I've been responsible for,
Where do you live?
I live on number 2 Road East,
Thanks.
Manly,
Thank you.
okay? And, but a lot of people don't realize how much activity the snowmobile industry generates. It's a huge revenue creator for the state. We maintain just shy of 60 miles in the Lafayette Trail. We have state funded 60 miles, or it's 58 miles. About 20 of that is in the town of Pompey. We've got about 4,500 stakes that got to go in the ground before you can open up the trail system. That's 4,500 stakes that someone has to pound in the ground. There's about 2,000 signs that we attach. And the snowmobile trail does not open up until all of this is erected as a public service by the club. And the period of time, the gun hunting season, deer hunting season is in place, we can't do anything. So we're just in the barn doing things so it's a huge disservice to the general public and the public service we provide to have to wait another week now to get this trail built. It doesn't just happen, there's a lot that goes on, and there's a lot of money that it costs us to do it. Our average budget's about just shy of 20,000 every year, $20,000 to erect the trail, take it down and maintain it during the season and groom it during the winter. So that 1 week of lost time is critical, because it's a week where generally a lot of the volunteers have some free time to go out into the woods and get this work done. Another problem is if we're kicked out of the woods for that week, sometimes if the weather's cold enough, you can't pound stakes in the ground. If it's hard enough, you can't do it. It takes a lot more effort. You got to drill, then pound. So there's a lot of complications to just randomly saying, hey, we're going to go hunting for another week, guys, without having any regard to this other huge industry that supports all the little mom and pop stores, gas, snowmobile registration, insurance, all the stakes and lumber we buy to build the bridges and the culvert pipes and the excavating. We hire local excavators to go do work. It's 20 grand a year we spend on just locally to keep this thing going, and it's all volunteer work. So this is very detrimental to the snowmobiling industry. Also, CMY Dirt just built 12 miles of mountain biking trail in Morgan Hill, all done by private donations, private volunteers. And during this, if you went there January 20th last year, the DEC just built a giant parking lot. On a Saturday or Sunday, there'd be about 35, 40 cars in the parking lot. They're all people mountain biking up in Morgan Hill. You extend the hunting season, that's gone. You lose that. So there's a whole nother, user group that is affected by this other than the snowmobile group. Anyone who wants to hike, snowshoe, mountain bike, fat biking has become very popular, especially with COVID. A lot of people you can't even buy those bikes now. Everybody's bought them up. They're trying to get outside, be active, do things, be healthy. So that hunting, if you haven't got a deer by Christmas, maybe you need to take up a different hobby, but it really does a huge injustice to the other beauties of the outdoors that are out there. And this was railroaded through. They snuck it through, managed to pull it off. The clubs and the state and our lobbyists and all were very busy doing other things, trying to keep the sport alive, but these guys pulled the fast one, and now, it's gonna hurt us. So if there is a way to opt out, which John has been very instrumental, is trying to keep the ball rolling and allowing us to opt out. I know that Madison County did get a resolution to opt out.
I would love to see
Madison County is
that.
a big snowmobile.
Can I see it?
There's a lot of snowmobile trail in Madison County.
I've got it in your folder
We
someplace.
get
Well, we don't
copies
have
of
our
those. I know, we get
They're gonna
copies
do a
of
new one,
Yeah.
but that's the one they did earlier this year for us. And, the economic impact of snowmobiling alone is estimated to be $868 million in our state. It's a huge impact. And you're gonna, you're gonna see there's a biological reason not to hunt deer. We're in a snow belt area. And in the snow belt area, we're one of the snowiest areas in the nation. If you look it up, Syracuse gets 100 to 150 inches. We probably get more up here because we're higher in elevation. And we generally get more winter mortality with our fawns because the fawns are the first ones to die. Last year I found maybe 6 or 8 because I do a lot of different deer things. So we had a little winter mortality last year. And deer, once you get to mid-December or so, their metabolism ramp way down naturally to conserve calories so they can make it through the winter. This is why the deer biologists and the DEC lobbied against this. You shouldn't be stressing deer during that period of time. They should be yarding up. The bacteria changes in their stomach to digest browse instead of leafy plants and forbs. Their metabolism ramped up. They shouldn't really be disturbed. And in the north, they had a problem. That's why the north took away some of the regulatory authority of the DEC, because the same thing, the DEC was just had a blind eye to some of these problems. The forestry work's going to suffer. I mean, that's a big economic thing. And there's a lot of reasons. New York State Parks is opposed. There's a opposition letter for New York State Parks, actually. It's opposed to the holly hunt as it's conflicted with what they call first day hike. It's some initiative they started to get people out into the outdoors on January 1st of each year. If you Google it, it'll come up, talks about the first day's hike. Central New York Dirt, as Kevin brought up, they usually have a big thing around Christmas and the holidays where they all gather up to Morgan Hill. They're going to have to scratch that. I volunteered for another non-for-profit. They were going to have their first fundraiser, same period of time. So now we're thinking about scrapping that too. It's really going to affect a lot in the community, extending deer hunting season through the holidays. No other state does it.
So I get your point.
Yeah.
I get your point. You can sit down, John. I've talked, yes.
Sign my resolution and I'll leave.
Well, my concern is I'm not sure we're the right place to, I mean, the DEC does not have an opt-out. I read the Madison County resolution. It's not opting out. It's just saying they want the DEC to come up with an alternative and.
I'm getting you that right.
So,
yeah.
So it's not exactly an opt-out, and without an ability to opt out. And I know there was a law that the Senate passed who passed it? Or they were going to. Now, let me just finish for just a second my thought, and then you can respond, because I know you could talk me under the table right now because it's been a long board meeting. But my concern is that originally you wanted us to do a letter or a resolution or something that would say that the town of Pompey supports the county opting out. And when I went to Dave Knapp about that, his response was, there's no ability to opt out right now. The DEC has not established a process by which they're going to. And I know you said that the deal was, if the DEC could administratively have this holiday season, that they were going to give counties the ability to opt out, which they have not done. That I can tell. I've looked into this with the DEC and I can't find any evidence that they've established that, and you would know better than I. I'm just wondering, we don't have any teeth. Anything, I don't know what, at this juncture, I guess is, I've talked to you about this. That's why I struggle with this. I'm sympathetic to the situation, believe me. And I do think, even though snow in December is questionable, as we all know, because sometimes we get it and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we've had it in November and then it goes away and we don't get it again. And I get all of that. My question to you is, I don't know what you're asking us to do, which is some sort of a resolution to tell the county, please opt out, when there's no ability to opt out right now, is going to do. And I've had this conversation with you prior to coming here tonight. So, but that's still my dilemma, I guess.
I researched into that. So I called Warner's office because she's
the assemblywoman who is
with me in the end from Onondaga County. And the bill passed the Senate, and it was going to pass, pushed it through the committee, and it was on the floor to vote. And Basil Sagos called her up, says, I'll give you everything you want in your bill. I'll do it with a regulation, so you don't have to do it legislatively.
Yeah.
So I talked to their legislative director yesterday, and she said that they will get something in writing. So that I told her, I go, this is what I'm running into, what you're talking
Yeah.
about. So they're gonna get something, they're gonna request something in writing from Basil Sagos, the commissioner of DEC, to say that he's working on the regulation. They're promulgating it supposedly right now. And the bill's been laid aside, so if he doesn't promulgate it, then
They'll
we're
pick
gonna
it up
pick it up
again.
and we're gonna run with it. And another legislator in Madison County just came up with another bill to opt out one of our three counties, Oneida, Madison, and Onondaga. You just sent me a copy. I don't know where that came from, didn't come from my group, but you know, there's a lot of other people
Yeah.
that are really against it.
I know it's late and I know we're not gonna make a decision
No,
about
I
this
know.
tonight. So I don't know if the board wants to ask any questions. I know, so I'm gonna defer. If you feel like you've had information and we want to absorb it and we can take this up again, if Tim wants some time to, if he.
I would like to absorb it. I would like to see everything that
Yeah,
you
me
were
too.
talking
Yes.
about, so if.
Did they make a copy for you?
We can't get at it. I don't know where it is. I
Okay.
think it's maybe locked in the judge.
Yeah, sure.
So
Maybe-
we'll find it, and
Yes.
I'm sure it's here, because I know you well enough to know that you definitely dropped it off.
We just cannot find it, and I have a feeling somebody must have picked it up and put it on a
Well,
desk.
Here's my copies. I got more. So
So this goes with that, so maybe
Yeah.
I'll give it all to you, and if you could just.
Here, pass it down and in the meantime, we'll find the other.
Okay, wait, so we got
Some of that
this
looks-
copy.
Yeah, I made I made everyone copies of what he gave me.
Oh, we already have it.
So wait, we don't have
But we don't have,
this.
yeah, I've got that.
Yeah, I got that.
I don't have the resolution
I
to
have that.
Madison County. That's what I
On the
didn't
end,
have.
very last page, Sheila.
Oh, all right, so we don't have the resolution.
if you think that, you know, this is a bad idea for Pompey,
It's not that I think it's a bad idea. I'm wondering we have no teeth in it. If
no, I know that. Well,
So we don't even have as a town, I don't believe, the ability to opt out. It would be, as I understood it from you, the DEC was gonna give counties the opportunity
you
to opt
guys
out.
can provide me with a resolution or a letter saying that, you know, you're opposed to the holiday hunt. That's all I'm looking for. In however way you want to word. That way I have something more for my file. So when we go to attack the county, work with them, I mean, you know, we have something more in my folder. And that's what I'm looking for, because I really think, you know, talking to everyone around, I can't really find the odd person here or there that thinks it's a great idea. Most every landowners are really upset with it. It really locks their land up for a whole week and during the holiday. You can't do anything. We don't need another week of deer season, is what most people feel. And if your board and the town feels that way, then I would like to let if you guys think I'm
So
crazy, then
let us absorb this.
yeah.
It's late.
Yeah.
I think that, let everybody read whatever we've got here, and I will put it on the agenda for next month for reconsideration of your request.
Okay.
But I think hearing it for the first time, we would be making a really snap decision. I've been talking to you, and I've been looking into it because I've been talking to you, but I don't feel like it's fair to the rest of them because I couldn't find this.
Well, I just
to leave them.
received this tonight.
That's what I'm saying. We
Yeah,
couldn't
right.
find this.
I agree with you.
We dropped it off a couple days ago, but we have not been able to find it. And I think it was put in the wrong Dropbox and we just,
It
it's
was
just,
put in the right one. I think someone else took it out.
well, that's what I mean. It's somewhere in here. There's not that many places it can be.
I want everyone to digest. I just want to get the
Yep.
ball rolling. You know, I know I'm assertive, but that's just me, but you know.
In a very mild way. But it is late, so I don't, yeah, and really late.
Thank you very much for listening to me.
You're welcome.
welcome.
I want to thank you guys for staying.
Yeah.
Like that, because this was a long meeting. And I don't know who you are, but you're just.
Citizen.
I was just gonna say, but if you didn't sign in, so if you're just here to listen, that's fine. That's fine. And.
Just not to go to Cherry Street tonight, okay?
Oh, really? I'm not going in the dark. I would entertain a motion to.
I make a
adjourn.
motion, we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Before the adjournment, take up with Tom right now that he's back at the funding on our two projects here.
Carl, I
Forget
can't
it.
believe you want to prolong this meeting, but he's right. Um,
Homer would like money up front because he's got 90% of the job done. And then
Of
the
this-
rest of it in August. And I proposed that he get 14,000 and 2,800. 14,000.
yeah,
Do we have an
14,000.
invoice or anything to
Yeah,
base
we
this
didn't
on?
happen to get an invoice.
It's a 16,000.
Well, we don't have an invoice we need to sign an invoice.
We need to sign a voucher, but we
I mean,
need
a
some
voucher.
sort of backup showing
a-
what work's been done. And
He just needs to give us a bill of
I mean, I
sorts.
guess the board could pre-approve payment.
We did.
Done.
You weren't here, so we just did it because we said we would pre-approve a payment of 14,000 of the 16,800. And we would pay the rest upon completion of the job.
Okay, yeah, I just need like something to,
We could bring over, have over, come
If
over
he
and
could-
sign a voucher.
Yeah, or no, we would need to sign the voucher, but if he could bring us some bill showing the
Yes.
work that was done.
I mean, I have blank vouchers if you want to sign a voucher. No.
Is anybody comfortable signing a voucher without the bill?
I am.
Well, it's 14,000.
Yeah, you
but
don't-
it's-
Tiger,
Yeah.
it's not.
I would, I know,
There's
John,
no
I would,
problem.
and I would
No,
sign
you're
it.
talking about the apps.
Right, I know.
Right.
I know.
We started to, but then
Oh, through this week.
He's got it,
Carl-
he's gonna do this.
Do we need to do this? Yeah, we guess we do. Okay,
Yeah.
and then the other thing is the oxen. We got a proposal from Mr. Kennedy who's can fix them for $1,400. Is there a place we can take that out of?
Well, it's out of building,
Okay.
out of buildings maintenance. So
Another
pay
voucher
16
then.
for it.
So, oh,
No,
no,
he-
no, we
it's not
just,
done.
Work's not
we
done, no.
approved it. We just didn't know if,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure we had something.
We have a lot of money in for
So we're,
repairs.
so we're good then.
Septic ate up quite a bit of it.
And is that, are those the only two things that we needed?
Two
to-
things.
Yes. Okay. So if he brings us a bill, he can get his $14,000 paid. There you go. Carl, good idea. I would re-entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
And Carl seconded it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Renee, do you have the ARP forms? that you
I
need me
have
to
them right
upload?
here signed.
By the way, I'm your neighbor.
Oh.
Good night, everyone.
Oh, my
God.
God. Birthday.
Wait a minute, turn that.
You're up there.
Veronica, what? Will you turn the audio off? Yeah.